Today, we're going to go over a few details, not too in depth, but Terrance Howard and Billy Carson are going to break down the flower of life. Listen closely and pay attention because a lot of it may go over your head. You may have to listen to this 2, 3, 4 times to understand. I'm going to break down some of it as we go, but not too much of it. For the fact of the reason is you got to do your own research to be able to understand what's being said. For those of you that have done your research, you already know or understand. This is where you get to further yourself in your journey. Let's begin.
In 1977, I saw something in my backyard that I perceived to not be an airplane. I didn't know about UFOs. I didn't know about aliens or flying saucers. I just knew what I saw was an orb. This is going to force science to rewrite books.
This is the fractal.
Yes.
You wrap yourself in the key of that other galaxy or the edge of that galaxy. You wrap yourself up in that vibration. Guess what? You don't need to use any energy except maintaining that vibration, and the universe will move you over here.
You know, advanced beings exist. You didn't say alien. Advanced beings, they thought I was just crazy. All Satan and devil worship and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Anything that I questioned. I'm always good when they need some money, though. When they need some money, I'm always the money's good. The devil money's always good when they need the money.
And then they thank Jehovah for you giving them the money.
Boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it. Quitting was never an option.
Terrance Howard is a celebrated American actor known for his strong performances in movies such as Hustle and Flow and Iron Man. He was born March 11, 1969 in Chicago, Illinois, to Tyrone Howard and Anita Williams. He came from a family of actors. His maternal great-grandmother, Minnie Gentry, was a stage actress, and his mother and uncles were actors as well. His father taught Terrance discipline at a very early age. His family struggled financially for many years before Terrance decided to move to New York to become an actor. At first, he enrolled as a student of chemical engineering at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. Dropping out after just 2 years, he began to make small appearances in television shows, including a part in The Cosby Show, starring Bill Cosby. Other roles during this time included a leading role in the television miniseries titled The Jacksons, An American Dream, and other programs such as Family Matters, Coach, and Picket Fences. Moving from television to film, Howard caught his big break with more prominent roles. The first of these was the 1995 film Mr. Holland's Opus and Dead Presidents, followed by Sunset Park in 1996.
Psychopath over there on the bench. Science is my favorite subject, Mr. Bernstein.
The Best Man in 1999, and in 2000, he co-starred with comedian Martin Lawrence in the hit film Big Mama's House. And in 2001, he starred with Jennifer Lopez in the film Angel Eyes. Other major roles followed, such as Hearts of War in 2002.
We served our country, sir. Archer and I.
Biker Boys in 2003, and Ray featuring Jamie Foxx in 2004.
Guys, he watching out for me? Is that why you get paid double what I do?
Who told you that?
Well, it's true, ain't it? You and Marlene have been gaming me since I got here.
Ray, baby, listen.
Got to listen to you.
A self-taught musician, Howard plays both the piano and the guitar. You can see Terrance display his musical talents opposite Jamie Foxx in the breakout film Ray in 2004. A promising songwriter, Howard's lyrics were soon to be acquired by some of today's top and biggest artists. Howard's reputation as a respected actor was now confirmed, and he began to receive even more lucrative roles. In 2004, he co-starred with several of Hollywood's top stars, such as Sandra Bullock, Don Cheadle, Thandie Newton, Matt Dillon, and Ryan Phillip, Jennifer Esposito, Michael Pena, Brendan Fraser, Ludacris, in the film Crash.
Honey, stay inside. Man, don't walk up on me. I know this man. Get back.
The film and the performance of the cast was critically acclaimed, and the cast won the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performances by a Cast in a Motion Picture.
And the Oscar goes to Crash.
The film itself received 6 Academy Award nominations, of which it won 3, and numerous other awards and nominations. He followed up with Hustle and Flow in 2005, for which he was nominated for Oscar, Screen Actors Guild, and Golden Globe Awards. He also sang all of his own songs for the soundtrack of the film, and the song was It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp, which won the Academy Award for Best Original Song.
Feel that.
You know it's hard out here for a pimp.
Howard also starred in the Marvel hit Iron Man alongside Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow in 2008.
Next time, baby.
In 2008, Howard also made his Broadway debut in an African-American production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. He also released the first studio album titled Shine Through It, which is a mix of R&B and soul and pop. In 2011, he played the role of Nelson Mandela in the film Winnie.
The sentence is life imprisonment.
He also appeared in the prominent television show Law and Order LA and also Law and Order Special Victims Unit.
Who are you?
Deputy DA, Los Angeles.
Law and Order LA's Terrance Howard comes to town.
So today, folks, I want you to welcome Terrance Howard to Quantum Minds on the Forbidden Knowledge TV network. Okay, so Terrance, finally, man, we're sitting here in person. Welcome to the show.
I think this is in person. Thank you, brother, for having me here.
A lot better than Instagram cell phones.
Yeah, that was not good. My backyard is not really cooperative with
But you know what? I appreciate you sticking it out for over an hour and a half with the mosquitoes in the heat. I mean, you kept moving around to get away from the bugs, and you came through, man. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, that was hard because my wife, she was like, "What are you doing?" She's my manager.
Yeah.
So she always wants to run through the business side of it, and I was like, "This is outside of our business."
Right.
With what we're doing,
Yeah.
I had to sneak to do that interview.
You got to back. Listen, man, I appreciate it. But you know what? With as crazy as it was with the connection and the bugs and everything else and the heat, the people got a lot of knowledge out of it. People really resonated with that. Yeah.
They really seem to enjoy just the back and forth and the honesty. Yeah. You know, we both are coming from the same kind of place. I mean, I try everything I can to be a man of integrity. Yeah. You know, I only hang out with people that have integrity. Like I used to have friends before, and they would cheat on their wives. And I'm like, how can I be a friend with you? How can I expect you to have any fidelity with our friendship when you stood in a room in a church in front of your family and her family, all your ancestors from the past, and all that you will come to be, and you promise to do something, and then you break that, and you think I'm going to be a friend. No, we don't do that.
We have the same mindset, brother, because, you know, I would meet people at different places where I knew there was going to be a lot of women business meetings. I would meet them like at the Ritz-Carlton on the patio on Fort Lauderdale Beach, and I'd be paying attention. Can they hold this conversation? Can we keep this conversation going? Can we work on what we're working on without your neck being broken in every direction, trying to catch every woman walking by in a bikini? And if they...
The whole point of doing that is to understand your mentality, your growth, and how strong you are.
Can't keep attention if they're focused on the women more than the meeting, then I realize I can't do business with that person.
No, integrity and bad association, like the Bible says, spoils the most useful of habits. And it took me a long time to learn that.
Yeah.
But we have to clean our associations. We have to clean our mindsets and our goals.
Yeah.
You know, you can't make it to the promised land holding on to the hand of someone who's headed in the opposite direction.
Correct. Everybody's not going to go with you.
No.
That's just a fact. And so speaking of that, I mean, were you ever into religion? And if so, how did that encourage you to explore science and invention?
Well, my mother raised us as, Baptist, Methodist, that whole Christendom aspect of it. We believed every part of that. My father, when he went to prison when I was 3, when he came back out, he was a Muslim. So he taught us Islam and we became Muslims. I have an Islamic name, Suleiman.
Wow.
And that desire to worship the one true God, that what he instilled in us. But there was something that happened when I'm like 13. There was a young brother named Yaqub, used to wear his dashiki, was really cool with my dad, had this great skunk-like, musk-like cologne on, and he was a man of integrity. But then one day I come home and there's a bunch of my father's friends around, all Muslims, and they're all talking in the living room. And I asked what had happened, and they said that Yaqub was in prison, was in jail because he had apparently cut off some man's genitals who had urinated on the masjid.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm like, this is a child of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care what my son does.
Right.
I would much rather you come and tell me than don't mutilate my child out of thinking you're respecting me. Don't kill your brother in this way, even if he doesn't know that he's your brother yet. So I began to question that. And then I questioned the idea of equanimity and justice. How can just God burn someone forever? This is going back to the Bible.
Yeah.
For something that they have done, even if it was heinous, for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. There's no way I could burn my child that went wayward forever and torment them forever, calling myself a loving God. So then I had to look at the doctrine and where it was leading me to and what was the necessity of it. And you have to look behind the curtain. You have to ask the hard questions. And that had a lot to do with me looking for truth. And the Bible did say something that impressed me. It said that God was suspending the circle of the earth above nothing at all. And this is at a time when everyone considered the earth to be flat.
Right. You're going back now.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
And I'm like, wow, he's suspending. How would they know that he's suspending the circle of the earth above? And then there was another point in Job, it says, where God was four angels are at the four corners of the earth holding back the winds. And I'm like, how does a sphere have four corners? So that ignited a desire towards geometry and understanding it. And that's what the all shape ultimately was, those four corners, that discovery. And all that came from Walter Russell and him speaking about the doubling sequence in the 1, the 2, the 4, the 8, the 16, that process. But the necessity, in order for anything to be measurable, it had to have 4 equal and opposite or measurable dimensions.
Exactly.
That blew my mind because it was no longer this 3 that we've been hit with. It was this 4. And when I started applying that, all the other things opened up.
Just unfolded.
So the Bible did play a part with that. My father's desire to seek truth had a big part in that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that you mentioned before on a few podcasts that, your journey in quantum physics really began with yourself.
Yeah.
And how does one begin? And I'm in the same boat as you, obviously, but I want other people to hear, like, what was your journey in learning quantum physics?
Well, you hear these stories about Einstein or these great inventors or physicists, but then the information and the theories that they present are contradictory to each other. And I was like, how are these things making any kind of progress or attempting to assist progress into advancing any math or any technology if they are all in conflict? And I kept waiting. I thought by the time I got 30 or 40, you know, all of these, whether string theory was real or not, it would be proven, or whether relativity was real or not. I was like, Einstein never received a Nobel Prize except for his work on the photoelectric effect, and that was Max Planck's work that he was just verifying. But Einstein didn't get none of his stuff really came to full fruition. But he's still considered as this prop placed up by science. But I couldn't get any understanding from that. So I started looking into the people that were questioning, that were enemies of Einstein's ideas, in a sense.
Of his concepts,
so I went into Lorentz, who in 1905, who had his own idea regarding the electron and the superpositioning of models of how everything behaved. But his stuff was based off of Maxwell's work, and Maxwell's work was based off of an ether. Everyone believed that there was this subspace ether, this fabric of space. And so I looked into their work and John Keely's work and Victor Schauberger's work.
His work is incredible. I mean, I remember doing an episode in Deep Space, a TV series I did years and years ago, and I had to study Victor Schauberger, and just like blew my mind.
That he was so conscious.
Oh my goodness.
And passionate about, you're killing the forest. This forest is dead. You've killed the water. How in the world do you kill the water?
Right.
Dr. Yamamoto didn't come out with that until what, the 80s?
The 80s, yeah.
And Victor Schauberger had been talking about that since the late 1800s, the living water.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time. For sure.
So those were influences that led, but I had to go in search of that. I went to school for chemical engineering, or applied for electrical engineering, but I was looking at the antiquated ways in which they were dealing with the universe, or their approach to it, and asking questions, and they didn't have an answer. They didn't have an answer. It was not sufficient for 96% of the universe to be unknown.
Unknown, dark matter, dark energy, which is still unknown.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Unknown, unknowable. And the 4% that they have out there, the speed of light, that's not a true constant in it, because light changes its speed depending on the medium it goes through. That's like having the speed of the human race. You know, black people are going to run differently than white people, than Asians.
That's a
Everything is going to change. It's a conditional fact.
Yeah.
You're going to change according to the conditions, and light adjusts depending on the conditions. So a lot of those things I saw as unrealities, and I couldn't rely on them.
Gotcha.
So that was me. What about you?
Well, me, you know, it was really interesting. I loved science when I was in school, science and chemistry. I was really good at it, but I didn't have a thirst for it until around 2010. So around 2010,
how old were you then?
39 years old, and you know, I had already been studying aerospace technology for years. I studied aerospace technology since 1977. In 1977, I saw something in my backyard that I perceived to not be an airplane. I didn't know about UFOs. I didn't know about aliens or flying saucers. I just knew what I saw was an orb, a little bit longer or elongated than an egg, glowing metal, and it moved across the horizon in seconds, not minutes. It didn't have a cockpit, didn't have wings, didn't have windows on it or anything. And it came back and stopped completely silent, and it just disappeared again. I ran in the house and told my mom, and she was like, there was advanced beings in the ancient past. And she told me about Machu Picchu. She said they used to live on tops of big mountains. And that was in 77. Fast forward, that gave me a quench and a thirst for technology, just understanding aerospace, swept wing, delta wing, ballistics, and everything else. I studied all that stuff for years. Didn't get really deep into the science other than basic high school science. But in 2010, when I was 39, something really changed. I had an experience, a very strange experience at my house with, I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, I talked about it on a few podcasts before. I felt like an otherworldly experience that I had. But after that experience happened, something happened to me with wanting to understand science at a deeper level, into quantum physics. And I really started deep diving into physics. A lot of the same people you mentioned, I was researching them, studying them heavily. I actually went to Khan University, Khan. It used to be free, but now you have to pay, I think, a minimum like 10, 15 bucks a month or something like that right now online, an online university for quantum physics. So I went there online, started taking those courses, and I was able to understand all this information. And it was so incredible. I just kept diving deeper. And then I opened up a Facebook group for quantum physics on Facebook, and it grew to like 139, 140,000 students. And I would help them answer questions in there and so forth, over time. And so that's really how I got into quantum physics. I just really developed this thirst for it. And I'm only talking about that incident that happened because it didn't happen until after the incident. Something triggered something or sparked something in me that made me dive into it. And then I was able to see the connection between the science and spirituality. And I realized that the quantum physics is really explaining what's happening on the spiritual realm. In other words, the quantum physics is the breakdown and understanding of spiritual energy and what's really happening when you're meditating, when you're focusing on things, when you're trying to manifest reality. All those things are really explained through quantum physics.
Yeah, well, it's you're that observer or the spooky
spooky action at a distance. Yeah,
spooky action at a distance. Your observation of it, it affects things. Things aren't just, you're not just perceiving it. It has, when you put your finger in the water, the entire ocean has to register that change of motion and condition.
Yes.
It has to be understood on some level. So us gaining information by what's been laid out in front of us, presented before us, most of that is speculation. Because like I was saying before, all of those things, all of that 4% of the universe, they've received Nobel Prizes and all of that for it, but they haven't produced anything that's changing the world or the conditions or making the world a better place. So it still looks like Solomon said, you're chasing after the wind. And when you start questioning these things and going back into meditating, going back, like when I tell people that a lot of this stuff came to me, like you, after having that experience and seeing that aviation phenomenon, it made you question and look into things. Well, likewise, having that dream when I was 4 or 5 years old and being reminded that I was someplace before here, and seeing all those geometries and wondering, why had I never seen those?
A lot of your dreams take you to other places. I remember one I've had lately, and I remember one I've had when I was 4. And when you end up looking at these pictures, you're going to see them all throughout your life. You're going to see them circles, same diagrams, and the flower of life all throughout your life and everything, especially when the sunlight touches it. Think about when you see sunlight through water.
Looking for them in school, so I started looking in the Encyclopedia Britannica, and that's where you get the Platonic solids. But then you have to start, what we're afraid to do is question what happened before the Big Bang.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, well, how did this straight line come to be? I started questioning all of those basic things, questioning down to the calculator, questioning every aspect, and questioning, okay, if what they said about God is true, that means I'm an artifact, that he just formed some clay and made me and blew some life into me. And they forgot to mention, or the people that was writing it was unaware of the Brownian effect, that clay is not some dead, unliving material. That clay is alive. It's vibrating and polarizing from positive to negative. Everything, and it's mating. Everything is here.
You see that? A lot of what he is talking about, you're going to see. But right there, when he was showing all of that stuff about the nucleus. Now, when you look at that right there, and with what he's talking about, you look at that, he's showing you atoms, but you also see the flower of life with around them atoms. He's also showing you cells. But look at that. Just look at it. Atoms, cells, they're one and the same. A cell has a membrane, so does an atom. You got good cells, bad cells. You got electrons, electrons, neutrons, and protons. But when you look at them and you were to put them side by side, you will see they are one and the same. Cells are living just like atoms, which means they are living within everything. Every desk, computer, everything you think is not moving is really moving. It's just your eye cannot see the vibration of the atoms. It's all living. It's all got a wave of frequency to it. And how you surround yourself with certain frequencies and waves determines how these cells and atoms react.
Everything, and it's mating. Everything is mating. Like when I mentioned wave conjugations, I always hear, oh, waves don't.
Now, what he means by it's always mating, everything has a cycle. Everything repeats. Look at a flower of life. You just got to learn how to connect the dots and understand what it is you're looking at. But that's how nature operates. It reproduces, it recreates, it reconstructs. You can't stop it. Anyone that's gone against nature, nature has moved out of the way.
Conjugate, it's like, no, you don't understand that these things are living and are mating. The sex principle is a big part of everything. That's how the universe reproduces itself. But then questioning things like in a contained universe. Well, this is the biggest thing that happened to me when I was a kid. When I thought I was doing something, I was 13, and I dropped a pebble into the pond and I watch it expand, and I realize everything expanded as a sphere. But if the universe was infinite, then it will just keep expanding out and you'll never see it return. But the moment I started seeing returning waves, and those returning waves were now hitting these expanding waves, I saw the same geometries that I had seen in those dreams. And I'm like, oh, so the universe isn't infinite. It has to be finite. And everything inside the universe has been built from the outside in. It's not the inside building out, it's the outside pushing in these contractive forces. Oh, so that gives me a different insight as towards the effects of, or the anomaly of gravity. When you start looking at it from what has been and not based off of that big G has always been God in the scientific world, you have to question that sometimes.
That makes a lot of sense what you're talking about, how the wave pressure coming in is helping to collapse this reality.
It holds it in place.
Yeah, because, even if you look at the double-slit experiment, when you're not observing the electrons going through the slits in this microscopic box, they act as waves of potential. But once you look, they collapse back into digital matter again. But when they're waves, they're giving you this superposition. Potential waves of what? Potentiality. But consciousness can collapse that back in. And in my opinion, what's happening is when a conscious observer is looking at these waves, it's like that force coming back in on the wave and collapsing it into the illusion of solidity.
Yeah, the illusion. There's all of this is an illusion, and to consider all of our collapsing waves, like the weight, the atmosphere, the pressure, the weight of the atmosphere, that's what holds each system together. So it should be the returning magnetic waves are responsible for the things that we call matter holding itself together. But if we just go on.
No, this is great. This is phenomenal. This is a great conversation. I think people are going to get a lot out of this, and I'm so glad that we're here doing this in person, man. Because this is going to be. I just want to I like giving people credit where credit is due, and I really think you have a magnificent mind. And whether a person went to Stanford, Harvard, or MIT or whatever, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing, because who was the first quantum physicist? And where did his degree come from? It didn't exist, right? There's no degree. There's no university. He went to the University of Life, and he got his degree in nature. And then he began to teach that to people. And then eventually they created a university. And then eventually people got a certificate for going there. You know?
But it doesn't, just because you've been reminded and have repeated words and phrases and theories constantly upon itself, no matter how many times you say it, it doesn't make it true. What makes it true, like Jesus said, you will know it by its fruits. What kind of fruits have it produced? Has it just produced a lot of speculation? Then great. Then it's an imaginary thing. But if it's something that is defined,
what fruits are you producing?
Universal structure, then it makes it more simpler. It doesn't make it more complex. It makes it more simple, and there's immediate application to it, and invention that will have application and improve a particular system. That should be the method. Now, what they've done is they've pedestalized all of the old inventors or theorists and physicists from before. So now it is heretical.
Yes.
Heretical to even question
facts. It became a religion.
It's a religion. It's a religion now, and you get burned at the stake. Even when you come with, I thought that by presenting patents, I thought that inventing new forms of flight, innovating multiple areas, starting the being responsible for half of the AR/VR that's out there, that all of these things would be enough. And then having the wave conjugations to predict every potential harmonic node. And matter occurs as a result of harmonic nodal interaction. It's circulating around that area. So I thought having these things and having a platform, it would garner people's interest.
Notice how he was talking about it having harmony, with it being a harmonic platform. All of that goes back to music. But what is music? Sound. But what is sound? Frequency. And what is frequency? Waves.
But like Jesus said, for those who have ears and those who have eyes, those are the ones to see. And if it took a 500 million sperm in order for me to get here and get to that egg, I had to win a race against 500 million. I think getting to the next stage of our evolution and growth, if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then everybody isn't going to make it. And so I don't need to.
Remember that, especially if you're doing business. The people you started with, they might not go with you. There's people that's going to be happy with what they getting and they going to want to grow. Remember, if you ain't growing, you dying.
Beat a dead horse in trying to encourage people to look and challenge things. The material is out there. The proof is out there. I've given it, sufficiently. If they don't want it, then I'll continue moving forward.
Yeah, we just continue moving forward. That's how we do it. And speaking of challenges, like what are some of the challenges you might have faced?
And that's a fact. Because there's going to be a lot of times you're going to explain your information to people and they're not going to care or even want to know. That's why you don't cast your intellect or pearls to swine to people who are not asking or seeking to grow and better themselves in their lives and others. You got to make sure you stay focused on your path, your purpose, your goal. Got to do the discipline and focus to achieve what you want to have in life.
Faced even in the early stages, maybe even growing up, in acting, any challenges that you faced in your life?
Well, the first challenge is surviving the Black neighborhood, surviving the disenfranchisement, surviving not having a sense of self. How do you know where you're going when you don't know where you've been, where you've come from? You don't know who you are, your uncles and your father,
Do you know who you are? Do you know where you come from? Do you really know where you come from?
They're having to do nefarious things in order to survive and pay for you because we live in a system that's not balanced. How do you maintain your morality in a world that's dark and immoral? How do you avoid the puffy parties? How do you avoid the Epstein ultimate effect where you gain so much power that you lose your sense of self? How do you stay connected to the earth and to your spiritual responsibility? That's been one of the biggest challenges out of everything. It's maintaining that.
Right, maintaining that, yeah.
That is one of the hardest things. And it's mainly because life tries to focus you on so much other stuff in your life to keep you distracted from what you really need to stay focused and disciplined with. That's why some lives we do them outside, some recordings we do them outside, some classes we do them outside. Because you may be doing one thing, but there's never a point in time you can't just stop and enjoy and be one with nature. You got to be able to find peace within nature and be one with it for you to understand. The wisdom will come with you being there and obeying wisdom. You obey wisdom, you obey nature, she will obey you. But you have to do the work to stay focused and disciplined.
I can understand 1,000%, coming from where I came from in the hood growing up, and just looking around and seeing the disarray and people just not really understanding, like parents, openly beating their kids in the street and people getting shot, people getting stabbed. I've been shot, I've been stabbed, overcoming that and realizing like, wow, there's gotta be something better. I feel like I'm just one of the fortunate ones that was able to see beyond the veil and realize like, this isn't for me. And I told my mother, I don't belong here. I knew it. I had that gut wrenching feeling that I didn't belong there.
How many of y'all feel like that now? Like you don't belong where you are? What are you going to do to make a difference? What knowledge will you gain to apply in your life to make it better?
And that was a big challenge. And the only thing that really ignited me to get out of that situation was the fact that one day I took a risk. I made a decision to go door to door asking for donations for my toys to my friends' parents, which I wasn't allowed to do. I wasn't allowed to leave the front yard of the house because it was too dangerous. And I went door to door around the entire block. I squared a block and I came back with like $13 and change. And I knew at that moment I was going to save myself. And I told myself out loud, I'm going to save myself. I realized that if I have a thought and I act on it, I can get a different result and I can change this reality tunnel that I'm in. And so that's exactly what I did. And once I did that, man, I knew for a fact I was going to escape this hell. And I did.
Yeah, it's like the superpositioning model we were talking about before, that fourth person perspective, that observational place. I've always said that, everyone sees a different horizon based on their height, their vision, and their imagination.
Yeah.
You see what you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
It crystallizes in front of you because that's all you're willing to speed up to.
Exactly.
Because it's just a matter of turning up your vibratory response, and then you can catch more inside of those little waveforms. But we at times have been told, okay, this is what you have to do. You beat Black people.
Yeah.
Into submission.
Right.
So Black people have been beating our children into submission.
Mm-hmm.
We are of no value. So we might as well, you can shoot a Black person and get less time in prison in comparison to shooting a white person, under the same circumstances. So we're taught that there is of no value in this thing called descendants of Al-Kabila.
Yeah. That's a fact. And so that's a big challenge for a lot of people. But I think that both of us are living proof that you can overcome these situations. It's a matter of your mindset and your vibration. I chose to vibrate higher, and it doesn't mean that I never got in trouble doing anything and doing stupid stuff when I was a kid or a teenager. But overall, the overarching conscious thought was always, how do I get out of here? And how do I build the type of family that I dream of and what I envision to be a good life,
Yeah, and see, like I pedestalize, Jesus and a lot of these prophets and Buddha, but I did not see them as something unattainable for me. I wanted what Jesus was trying to accomplish. I didn't want what Jesus did. I wanted what he was trying to do.
Right.
So when I go about and I'm doing my very best to be the Messiah in my daily life, looking for opportunities in which, how do I make way for life? How do I extend and help someone else along the way? Then I feel like when I'm watering my plants at night, I've turned the hose upside down to where it goes up and it's taking its natural turn. And I know that all of these plants have been praying and hoping. They're alive, they're conscious, they're praying in this hot California heat for someone to bring them water. And every day when I'm giving them water, I'm the extension of God. I'm making.
Do you understand that? He's the extension of God. In Genesis, it says, let's make man in our image. Who is our? Which means there was more than one God. And when you do your research, you'll come up across a word called Elohim. And it's a plural word meaning more than one. It wasn't the word God, it was Elohim. Now, Jesus even says, it's not mentioned that ye are gods. So he even referenced Genesis. So when you look at it and understand it, when you actually go and research into that a lot more deeper, you understand that you are just as your Father, the Creator, God, not omnipresent and all powerful. You are able to create and let's put it this way. You can create and use an imagination to bring in a whole new world. You're able to bring in life. You're able to create life. Just as our Father. But you're not able to have the right to take life. You create life. You didn't give it. There's a difference. So when you already understand all of that stuff, you understand a lot of the parables that Jesus was speaking. And you understand you're a God of your own environment and free will. You always have it. Everything is voluntary. You just make the choice of whether you accept it or not. But you got to remember, in your environment is either positive or negative. If you have negative, remove it. Stay around positivity, think positivity. Everything has two sides. There's a polarity, a balance system. If your heart is positive, there's no worries. There's no heaviness on your heart. But if you have done evil or hurt and harmed and caused pain to others, it weighs heavy on your heart. Where you have guilt and depression, it eats at you. But you gotta remember, it's all a test and you always have a choice. It's up to you to make the right decision. Everything has a reaction. It's God's law. It's one of the 7 Hermetic principles if you've read the Kabbalion. It's the law of correspondence. So what you have to understand is you are a God as long as you are controlling your environment with positivity and not negativity. And you are creating to get back to the world. Not taking or destroying. But when you are doing negative, you're on a low vibration. You're not on that frequency of being a God. So you have to remember to always think positive through your negative situations, to turn that negative energy into positive energy. And by you doing that, you can use it for fuel. And who knows how far your mind will go to create the next greatest thing the world has seen. But you got to be able to put in the work and believe in yourself and stay focused and disciplined in your purpose and what it is that you want to do.
Making their dreams come true. And sometimes my wife is upset about the fact that I'm out there putting all of this time into it, but it's what moves me in hopes that when I'm in a situation that there's a greater being that's able to hear it. And if everybody is doing that and conscious of every thought that goes through our minds, the entire universe has to share that thought.
Yes.
Whether you carry it out or not, the entire universe. So we are responsible for how God is perceived.
Facts. And I tried to. I went live the other day, and I was really going in hard. I did one of my rants, right? And I was ranting about the Electoral College, and people thought I was only talking about the political system and voting, but I was really talking about taking that same thing you just said, becoming your own Messiah, becoming your own president, that mindset, that frequency. And what does that mean? Becoming the president of your own life and become the president of your family. In other words, it means taking on that responsibility. I said, if you want your community to be fixed, you go out and fix your community.
Bingo.
If you want situations to be repaired in your life and in your family's life, financially or otherwise, you work on that, because nobody's coming in here to save you and fix that problem except for you. You are the one that you've been waiting for. You are the savior you've been waiting on. And when people get the concept and understanding that they are their own saviors versus taking the victim mentality and trying to make an outside source into a slave, this world will change, the universe will change overnight.
Yeah, when
there are no victims when it comes to this. You must remember the law of attraction. whether it's good or bad, you somehow, some way attracted that into your space. So you just have to work a little bit harder. Stay positive through the whole situation. And again, those who complain, they want you to give them a solution. They're not trying to help themselves. They want you to help them. Stay away from people that's always complaining and not trying to fix their problems in their life. It'll drain you. And not only that, you'll have a headache and you'll get to the point you don't even want to hang out or even answer the phone no more. You know it's some bullshit on the other end. But at the end of the day, you gotta make the difference and put in the work to change your life for the better, to change your family's life for the better, and help others change their life for the better. And until you do that, and we all come together and do that one person at a time, we can't expect change unless we change ourselves first.
You know that you are responsible to get yourself out of the hole.
Yeah.
You become inventive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Facts.
But when you're waiting for someone else to come and save you from an enslaved condition, freedom is not given. Freedom is something you take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Freedom is something that you demand. If it's handed to you, that's not free. That's not liberty. You know, and we're supposed to be agents.
It's a little bit off topic, but for those who do know, he said freedom is a demand. That is your right. For those who know what I'm talking about, that is your right. You must remember that when it comes to commerce, you must stay in honor at all costs and keep clean hands. And a lot of the laws follow the Kabbalion and the 7 Hermetic principles when it comes to the law. So you follow those 7 Hermetic principles to a T. You can see how things change for you spiritually when it comes to law, especially when you're in that courtroom. But let's get back into it.
Or apertures of the Creator and all that we do, if we are truly made in God's image.
Right.
And we do have God's power because we have the ability to bring life or death to multitudes of creatures. We can blow a planet out of the sky if we want. So we have the power of God. What are we doing with it?
Exactly. We literally have the power. People don't understand that. Like when people say, you know, the power is in you, the light is in you, people think it's just a phrase or a term, but it's real. The real energy, the divine spark that created everything in the universe is in every atom inside of our body. It inhabits us. So we are God and God is us. And when you begin to understand and grasp that and realize that everything that exists has been manifested by a conscious thought by people. We are creating everything that exists. This table, this microphone, the cell phone, even the paper that's here with the ink on it. We're manifesting this out of conscious thoughts into reality, and people take it for granted. They think that they don't have any power, and human beings don't have the power to create or destroy. But if you look around and pay attention, we're creating and destroying everything. We're the ones that have the power to do that. It's been granted and gifted to us. We just have to know how to wield that power.
Well, maybe we're just a product of this condition of when the earth or planet gets to this particular position from the sun, and the earth will ultimately have to be pushed out to where Mars is, and everything will expand on it. There has to be something that tears it down. So maybe humanity is that thing that tears down. that which was put up. Maybe that is our position, because apparently that's what we seem to do. We're very caustic, and I'm hoping that we can become non-caustic, and maybe that's the idea of what Homo sapiens are. Homo sapiens. But I can no longer consider myself to be part of a Homo sapien species when they are now nothing like me. They're nothing like my thought process or my hopes or my actions. I'm an actor because I wanted to win my mother's approval. My mother wanted my son to be my brother to be an actor, and I wanted her affection so bad that I'm like, okay, if I become an actor, I'll get her affection. But the moment she died, I realized, what am I doing this? I had no, hey Ma, look what I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I've gotten distracted, being insecure.
What is your purpose? What are your goals in life?
About my affection with my mother. How many more of us are pursuing things that have nothing to do with our calling or our purpose because we're trying to, my mother's been dead, for damn near 20 years now. Longer, I can't waste energy trying to please her when I already had her approval. Right. I just was insecure. So bound yourself up, strengthen yourself up, and get to the job that you have to do. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and you'll end up being relegated to another purpose instead of that which you were supposed to accomplish.
Man, you're speaking true facts today. I had run many companies. I built several big companies. Before I got in, became Forbidden Knowledge, I was running a huge call center, a 5,000 square foot call center in Fort Lauderdale. And we had about 50 people on the phones, 2 stories of this nice building, and generating about $150,000 to $200,000 a week in gross revenue, doing pretty well. But I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy because, I wasn't living in my passion, obviously. My passion wasn't being fulfilled. It wasn't something that that I felt was my true mission here. I knew what my mission was already, but I was thinking, I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing this super part-time, because I started in 2007, right? But I'm like, but I have to make money. I have to pay. I got a family. I got da-da-da-da, right? And I didn't realize that once you live in your passion, and you exchange that energy for that passion, and you find a need for that passion in the world, the money shows up as a side effect. So you don't have to chase the money. And when I realized that, the day that I realized that, I walked into the office and went to my partners and said, guys, I'm out of here. And they said, what do you mean? I said, I have to really follow my passion. I have to walk away. And they were stunned and shocked, because I had set this whole system up and it was very successful. And they said, well, how much do you want for your share of the company? I said, you guys keep my share. I'm starting from zero. And I walked out and I became Forbidden Knowledge, and I just started from zero. It took me from 2013, beginning of 14, all the way to 2017 before I turned on monetization to try to figure out how am I going to really monetize. I had to build it first. And then from there, I continue to grow every single year. But man, you say, if you're not living in your passion, you're doing something else that has nothing to do with your true mission, and you're in agony. And every single day, I didn't even want to do that work. I didn't want to get involved, and I didn't want to go to the office. I got to the point where they're like, are you coming in today? And I wouldn't come in for like a week at a time. And I realized, man, I'm just burning years. I'm burning time, and I'm not making any change. There's no appreciable effect on the planet because of what I'm doing there, and I have to make a change.
How much time have you or are you wasting in your life?
That book, Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson.
Oh, no, I don't know that one.
Oh, my God.
Check it out.
You'll love it. But it's a story of these 4 little creatures, 2 little mice and 2 little people. Yeah. And they live outside of this enigma. Okay. What do you call it when there's damn, I just had a senior moment.
It's like a cave?
When the mouse runs through this.
Oh, the mouse hole?
Yeah, but what is that called?
Oh, the maze.
The maze.
Yeah.
The maze. Oh, my God, I kept calling it muse.
Don't worry.
So they live outside of this maze.
Yeah.
And every day, the little mice, they go inside to look for their cheese, and they've got the same routine. They put their little sneakers on and sniffs in the direction, and then scurry, runs in the direction that sniffed in. And then there's him and Haw, and they have their little human ways of finding cheese, and they like a different type of cheese.
Okay.
You know, they like soft cheeses. But something interesting happens when they find this place called Cheese Station C. And in Cheese Station C, it's all the cheese you could ever want, all the cheese you could ever need. And all of the two little mice, they keep doing the same thing. Every morning they get up and they sniff in the direction to go, and they find Cheese Station C. But the little humans, they move next to Cheese Station C. They live right there next to Cheese Station C, and they never notice that Cheese Station C is running out. And so one day when all the cheese is gone, the little mice, they sniff and they run in direction of the new cheese. But him and Haw, they sit there and they start complaining. Who moved my cheese? Who moved my cheese? And you find that having cheese doesn't make one happy. It's the search for new cheese.
When you look at that, it's the same exact thing that every mouse has to go through. But it was really an analogy of your life. People are stagnant, complaining about their situation rather than trying to find a solution. And rather than searching to find the next thing, they rather stay in the situation they are in and continue to complain until someone else comes and fixes it.
It's that search. You had already accomplished all of these things, but here you're just repeating, and when you're supposed to be growing to the forbidden knowledge aspect of it. So I applaud that. You know, for me, it's been the same thing of, you know, I could be quiet and be a good actor and make millions and millions of dollars, but that's not what I wanted. What I wanted to do was to explore the truth and then share that truth with individuals. And I'm doing that as the best that I can. You know, now I have to take the responsibility off and say, hey, it's there. Now I'll just keep building it.
Right. You keep building, and you're doing a great job. It takes a lot of courage to do what you've done so far. And I don't know if people can really understand the level of courage that it takes to step outside of what is considered the norm and is considered to be a great career, to then start talking in an area where you're talking against a lot of what the mainstream considers as real science, right? So you're bringing these new ideas, new concepts. That takes courage, because you're going against the grain. And a lot of people, I don't know if they realize how hard it is for a person to just step out and actually have the strength inside of them to do that.
Well, when you've been given little secrets along the way that point in the direction that says, nope, this upturns their cart. Red flags don't come free. You have to use them. And so I knew that they didn't have facts. They just had propaganda. They didn't have any facts behind them, or these theories would no longer be theories. They would be constants and accepted things in there. And I had the actual proof. I had simple proof down to the malfunctioning of the calculator and the things that they hold as important and reliable. I'm like, no, this is you can't rely on.
It's flawed.
It's flawed. The foundation of your entire world is flawed, and I'm presenting the truth and with proof. And I say it's the truth because it comes with the proof of it.
That's the value of doing your research. Finding out the truth, the knowledge, and the wisdom. When you do your own research and find out these things, and find out the contradictions, that it goes against a lot of the stuff you were taught, a lot of stuff you believe. The question is, will you continue to live a lie or live in truth?
Yeah.
No,
you bring the receipts.
Yes.
That's what you bring in, the receipts, and that's what matters. Have you seen any connection to your art of acting with the science that you're involved in, or is it completely two separate things?
No, it's everything is one action. You know, I'm still looking for, like, they give me these characters, and one of the things that I do, whether I don't, and they always throw a bad guy at me, you know, but I don't believe there are any bad guys. You know, like James Earl Jones told me, he said, let Sidney play all the, you know, the politicians and these great people. He said, I want to play the complicated people because I came from a complicated life and a complicated world. So I want to find humanity and peacefulness in resolving someone. So when I get on a series like Empire, and who the character after 2 years was supposed to die,
right?
You know, he was supposed to have
oh, really?
Yeah, he was supposed to ALS.
Oh, wow.
And so he would receive his justice and become a better person by the end of the second season. That's what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And then they're out of nowhere, they want to, you know, save him because they wanted to keep him alive, but he was a zombie. I could not save that person with their storyline. So you have to find a space where you can, you know, I'm trying to become a better person no matter what the condition the person has been in. So there's a tie, you know, towards truth, towards compassion, towards love, you know, because every bad character started off as a beautiful child, and somewhere along the way, you know, some fundamental was missed.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It brings me down to just understanding the, you know, it's not really a law or a constant, but I guess it might be considered a constant hypothetically. Love, right? And which is a frequency. And if you look at like the movie Star Wars, the Jedi, they use the frequency for the light, and then the Empire uses the same frequency for the dark. So even though you start off as a you know, this great little soul that's just filled with light and, you know, and knowledge and wanting to grow and to be this great person, and all of a sudden at some point, because of all the things that interact with us, it can then change, and in some way that person's mind decides to use that same light that was in them for darkness. But it's still only one light. In the Bible, in Isaiah, it says, I created the good and I created the evil. Do what I say at the Lord. So God is saying he's creating the good and the evil. So it's this dichotomy of yin and yang, which inside of all of us.
I mean, you have a sword or a knife. The knife can be used to cut open a person, or it could be used to open up a watermelon.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it's in the hand of the beholder, in a sense. Yeah. We are what we choose to be, and bad association, again, like Timothy, it spoils the most useful of habits. Yeah. When you watch death continually, you lose the appreciation of life. When you watch and are associating with people that are not bending to the light and yielding to the light, and they just turn their back to it, then you know, you end up crystallizing in the wrong direction. But at any given point, you can look inside and reconnect with your greater being, with your greater purpose. At any given point, you can turn.
What he means by that is you can look inside yourself and determine your values, your character, and who you really are. Who are you as a person?
Around and identify with the divinity that is in you.
Right. Absolutely.
And have the access to everything. People criticize a lot. Well, you didn't get a degree. You didn't learn these things from our schools, and neither did Ramanujan.
Exactly.
Ramanujan said he got it from Shiva. So why are you accepted from him? And he had just equations. Here I have.
Shiva, you'll find out, is in the Bible. And it's talked about in the Bible. You'll also find out Shiva is a goddess.
Yeah. True patterns and full things and defining things that have never been defined before. Right. Why don't you accept it? And I had to accept that they weren't supposed to accept it. It wasn't meant for them. Right. But the people that do accept it and understand, within that is the secrets to everlasting life.
Yeah. Yeah.
The true secrets of being able to manipulate the universe.
And that is what you got to figure out throughout your research. And when you understand the flower of life, you can extend your life. because you understand the cycles, how life rebuilds.
In a good way. And I think the universe gave me these gifts because of my overall nature. At the end of the day, I don't really care about humanity. I care about the hue of our humanity.
Okay.
I want a legacy to where we're considered like the angels, you know, and animal and plant life to rejoice when they interact with us instead of running in fear. Like my ninth rule for my family is make way for life.
A lot of people who are one with nature will notice nature will come to you when you are one and on the same frequency as nature. It will come to you. Some people have videos of trees touching them. A lot of people wonder why a bug comes to them and they move away and the bug comes to them and they move away and the bug comes to them. You're giving off a frequency and nature's trying to connect with you. There's a very few people out there who know when you see a waltz, a bee, a yellow jacket, they only attack when threatened. They come to you out of curiosity. But if you was to be still in that peace with nature, you would notice that they would land on you, crawl, and fly away, and not once be aggressive or sting you. But most people are scared with fear. Until you can conquer your fear, you won't be able to conquer life.
And that's the message for our church. The Center for Truth, Love, and Consciousness, TCOTLC, is make way for life.
Gotcha. Beautiful. That's beautiful, man. And speaking of some of the rules that you have, let's talk about teriology. You've introduced the idea of teriology. You know, it's a different approach on how you see the universe's fundamental building blocks. So let's get into that.
Well, see, the funny thing is that was the writer for the Rolling Stones.
That you came up with that term?
He said teriology, and I think he said it as a slight. You know, because that entire article was seriously a hit job.
Wow.
But I told him about the Tetractarian wave conjugation.
Okay.
That's what it always was, but they began calling it teriology.
Oh, gotcha.
Just to
like a little jab.
As a jab. Yeah. But the fact that they're talking about it and had to talk about it actually added to what we're doing, because these are, what I did is I took the flower of life. So if we go to my book, tcotlc.com, this is kind of.
Make sure y'all go to Terrance Howard's website and look at his linchpin, his research, and understand it. But listen to what he's about to say, because this is the biggest secret of all. The flower of life. The moment you understand it, you will always be free in truth.
The journey of how these wave conjugations came about.
Okay.
I was told that our fundamentals came from the Platonic solids. And my question had always been, because I always wanted to get to the root of things, like I loved etymology. I wanted to get to the root of the word and understand what was intended.
Yeah. So pretty much he's saying his journey and his search for truth started with Platonic solids. You wanted to know the truth about it. A lot of your research or something you search in truth is your soul searching for the answers. And when your energy is able to find the answers it needs to boost its frequency to go to the next level and ascend spiritually throughout the body, you are able to unlock more truths. There's steps you have to follow. There's rules to this game of life. But are you willing to play the right way to win?
Yeah.
So I wanted to know where the fundamentals came from. And they said that the fundamentals were the tetrahedron, the octahedron, the hexahedron, the icosahedron, and the dodecahedron.
Right.
And I was like, okay,
What he just broke down to you was the different shapes and their actual formation before they're broken down into another formation of what we're called today to see as shapes. So what most people don't know is shapes have more sides than what we're told. And that's what he's trying to break down now.
Where these come from? Well, they come from the idea of a straight line and a flat plane and all having regular sides. But I was like, so where did the straight line come from? Yeah. You know, here I am asking, you know, how did God come to be?
Right.
You know, where did, because God is the straight line. Because what do they say? We want to straighten something out. Yeah. If there's any situation that's wiggly, you know, let's put a ruler on it. Let's straighten this out. Let's get it all squared away. So that's their kind of God. I was like, let me look at this. And since Newton said every action has an equal and opposite reaction, that's never been argued. Therefore, the greater.
That's a Hermetic principle, law of correspondence.
The action, that means the greater the reaction. The greater the reaction, the greater the resistance. The greater the resistance, the greater the curvature. And since the creator demands equanimity, everything has an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, every reaction is going to be curved and based on the angular momentum that's created from the intersection. So I was like, so where did they get these straight lines from? If God couldn't make straight lines, oh, they invented them. So where did they invent them from? I was like, well, I went to the oldest and earliest information I could find. And this is what really got me, because it took me back to those dreams that I used to have. Here, I'm pulling something up. Now, here's the flower of life.
Okay.
You know? Yep. As the age of it is almost unknown. Oh, yeah. But each and every.
Take a look at that. That's the flower of life. That is your life. You must mentally understand it. But you got to put in the research to do so. This is not an easy task, I tell you.
It's 64 overlapping circles, but there are no straight lines there. But at a time when the thought was that there were straight lines or the world was flat, guess what they did? They averaged the spaces where the circles overlap.
Exactly.
How many of y'all remember that right there, what he's showing you? Y'all remember seeing that in school? That's an exact diaphragm. How they showed you they ended up getting the shapes in school using the flower of life. They used to teach this in school. I don't know if they still do. But you start to understand a lot of where you got your shapes. So now it takes you back to the beginning of the flower of life. But you see how they got shapes out of the flower of life? Imagine what else you could get if you was to understand the flower of life.
And I was like, oh, that's an average. That's an approximation. That's not real.
Right.
You know, the Pythagorean theorem coming from the cube. And I was like, well, maybe they didn't open the flower properly. So what I did was the little Jiminy Cricket that's been leading me along the way, it said, why don't you lay out the flower of life and open it based upon the relative factors? Let me go to page 134 in the book that was just on 64.
Okay.
And said, why don't you open it based upon the actual actual pieces that make up the flower?
Right.
And mind you, I was still trying to figure out what were those shapes that were being presented to me when I was 4 and 5 years old. Right. I hadn't seen them yet, even after in researching this stuff. And then this is when it all came into being.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, oh, this is tight. Wow, that's good. Let me do that again. Let's go, right? Sorry. That's tight. Okay. So I was like, what happens if I take 4 of the individual pieces that make up the flower? And that's 4 of the triangular pieces that makes up the flower. So I was like, if I take 4 of these triangular pieces and put them together based on universal ratios, then again.
Look at that right there. Look at how that shape he has is fitting in there. But look at the curvature on that shape. See how it went from 2D into a 3D, but it still resembles the curvature of the flower of life? Well, the thing is, when you look at these circles, you see they are all connected. And each one is a flower, no matter where you look in the circle. But what if you was to find out each and every circle was a cycle that you would have to go through, and each petal is a lesson you would have to learn? But now the question is, how do you break the cycle so you can actually control your own paradigm? Because if you was to look and go around this and you see the same thing over and over and over and over and over, but is that not what you're doing right now and expecting a change? This is showing you the cycle you're going to go through. But what are you going to do to change it? What ripple effect are you going to have to send out that comes back? You send out positive, it comes back positive. You send out negative, it comes back negative. But these can be changed. But it's up to you to figure out how to change them and to figure out what each petal is and what each circle is. And when you figure that out, nothing can stop you mentally at all. And there's nothing you won't be able to do, because you will understand the truth that sits in front of you.
Gave me this negative space where 4 bubbles met.
Right.
And based on what Walter Russell had talked about in the nature of how electricity moves, it's always seeking a higher pressure condition. Yeah. So this area in here, let's see if this will open up, get a little bigger for me. This area right here is where electricity is going to be spinning northeasterly.
Okay.
Spinning to the right. Now, as the electricity, as each wave hits here, now it's being pushed by other waveforms, and so it gets pushed out to these vortices at the tip, and now it's no longer able to spin northeast, and so it starts, because it has low density, it has nothing to push against, so it starts spinning southwesternly.
Gotcha.
And now this is where it becomes magnetism. Well, I found it interesting, but they gave me the patents for this thing, and I called it the tetrient.
Yeah.
You know, but it turned out to be the geometry of hydrogen. And I'll explain that, I will qualify that as we go along. Then I was like, well, what happens when 8 bubbles meet? Now, what was interesting, this is the negative space where 8 bubbles are meeting.
Yeah.
And you have the 8 contractive sides for the Huntian.
Notice you hear about electricity, electrons. Then you also hear about negative space, negativity. Positive and negative polarities work hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. For example, it's positive electrons on the ground, and it could be negative or positive and negative electrons in the sky. That right there gave you your electricity. That was your lightning, broken down in a simple form. That's your lightning. And he just explained to you how it shifts and goes to another and another. That's the power that you have to manifest positive thoughts.
1, 2, 3, 4, and there's 5, 6, 7, 8 if you were to turn it all the way around. But it only had 6 magnetic poles. So that meant that it had a greater electrical potential than a magnetic or repulsive potential. And I was like, wow, that sounds like a neutron.
Yes.
That sounds like the work of a neutron. But what was interesting, I was like, but how does it have, in nature, everything is always balanced. I was like, so this having a...
Now he's saying neutron. When we go back to the cell and the atom, they all have a membrane. They all have a nucleus. So has a good and bad part with it. Electrons and neutrons are positive and negative electromagnetic fields and charges that can be given off. But the atoms have to come together. And that's what he means by 8 bubbles. What happens if 8 bubbles were to come together? 8 bubbles of life itself were to come together. What is it that you will see?
Greater electrical potential than a repulsive potential, magnetic potential. I was like, that wouldn't exist inside of the universe unless this right here, each time these tetrians, these 4 tetrians, as they unite around or combine or interact, you'll see that they are taking up 1, 2, you have 1 and 2 of the electric potentials taken up. And they gave me again, oops, God forgive me. I will have me a engineer one of these days with me. This is like some, but you still have 6 bubbles meeting, and they gave me the patents to that, but you still have 6 unaccounted for. So I was like 6 electrical poles unaccounted for. So I was like, what happens when 6 bubbles meet? And here with 12 bubbles meet.
Look at that. You see it's repeating, but you see you're getting your shapes. But look how each shape is giving you one shape, but they're all curved, no straight lines. Even your universe is elliptical orbited.
And now you still have 4 unaccounted electrical poles, and it's a stable system. And I call this an Aubrian. And I'll show you in the video that I just showed you the supersymmetry of it. But then I was like, what happens when you put 24 bubbles together? And again, all of these, the pattern.
Look at that. Looks like your spear. But you keep putting them together, you get all the different possibilities of life. But what are those lessons, those possibilities? Because you got to remember one thing. The flower of life was teaching God's core values and lessons. So you have to go back to what were the lessons that were taught way back then. And once you learn those lessons and start applying them to your life, you can figure a lot of the stuff out. But you got to do the research and especially read. Because most of this knowledge that I'm explaining to you right now is in a book. Ain't nowhere else. It's in a book from the 1800s. Everybody got you stuck on books from the 1900s. They don't tell you about the ones from the 18 and 1700s for a reason. But again, do your research, read, grab books with knowledge, not just books with entertainment. You're going to get a book for entertainment, make sure it's entertaining you, but has a moral at the end to not only teach you some value, but how to better yourself in your life.
Were granted, but you'll notice this entire thing is literally the pressure condition that's generated from 8 of the tetrians pushing on a given point.
Okay, in case y'all don't know what tetrians is, when you look at this and you see the degree that each one is touching to connect, that's where your tetragen is. But when you look at this, they're not directly touching, they're just in the same direction. I wonder if y'all just caught that. I just threw a little key out there. But if you look at this, just look at it, you'll see a bunch of nothing to the naked eye. But those, like he said, who can see, God puts a veil on those until they are ready to see what's in front of them. That's why you can't be going around trying to wake people up and expect them to be able to wake up. The veil hasn't been lifted. That's why you're supposed to get with like minds and learn from each other and grow. But again, when you look at these, the points of where everything in the world connects, it's so much pressure when it's to build up, especially when you was to put your focus and discipline on something. Imagine this being your focus and discipline on something. Look what you could create. Just look at it. That is something you can create. But you got to do the research and put the time in.
Pushing on this one center right here. So this doesn't really exist. This only exists as a result of the condition of these tetrians or these atoms in relation to each other. Okay. But as a result of this, the entire universe ends up making sense. Right. Because this pressure condition, you know, the moment you remove the pressure condition, now it goes back to being separate tetrians. So I was like, it made sense with the massless particles, those ideas. But then when I put them all together.
This is incredible because when you look at this basic science of accretion, right? If you take matter, if you take flour, or small amounts of rocks and take them into orbit around Earth and then release them, they're going to naturally attract, and the pressure conditions are going to create an accretion disk, and that accretion disk is going to begin to spin on its axis, which is the formation of planets.
And that's all those waveforms returning back onto each other, returning back to each other. So it's like they're looking from the inside out and wanting something to come from in here. Mm-hmm. But I want to get to these videos, 5 different pressure conditions that replace the platonic solids. Yeah. You have a grand.
Now he's showing you the same thing, but with light. So if light is showing you and telling you the same thing, you begin to understand the connections. Doesn't the Bible say, go to the light? Stay in the light.
And unified supersymmetry that don't exist. Here's where 4 bubbles meeting where 8 bubbles meeting where 6 bubbles meeting where the 12 is meeting. Right. I put 5 of where the 12 coming together. They make natural star forms. I put 10 of them, and they create these natural.
And you know what's so beautiful about this? Before he even came out with talking about this, many years ago, I already knew about this, but I didn't understand at that young age what it was I was looking at. But I remember this from when I was a young child, because it was talked about, it was showed. Another person was trying to explain it, and then they just disappeared. But at that time, I didn't know government was getting rid of people. But again, that's why he did what he did, to bring out the research. But it's just, when you look at this and you put it together, I'm not even going to do it, because this is his life work. This is his creation. I'm not breaking none of that down.
Icosahedrons, when you put two of them on top of each other, I was like, this is the building blocks of the universe.
It's the building blocks of the universe. You're talking about the fractal matrix at the central of its core, unfolding this flower of life into multiple dimensions instead of a flat plane, and showing how you can build anything.
Anything.
Build a planet, a sun.
There's a video where we rebuilt the planet Saturn, which I found very fascinating.
Very similar to the Mandelbrot set and fractal.
Look at that. You see that? I look around it. You see them rings? I'm going to unpause it right quick. Just look at that.
Mathematics.
You see that? You see how the rings, they move in and out. Because something it's the law of correspondence. You gotta receive. You give something out, you gotta get something back in equal return. You can get something back greater depending on how much you done put out. But you see how they changed their frequency when it came to the flower of life. Now, when you look at that and you see the biggest circle ever around it, you start to see how everything created has this same circle and flower of life in it. But just like water can carry memory, so can light. And it's crazy. But they show you so many things and just don't tell you. For example, many people don't know, you put a copper rod deep enough in the ground and hook a box up to it, hook that box to a house, you got electricity that you're paying for, but the electric is coming out of your yard. So pretty much you're paying for a lifetime setup. Don't believe me? Go do your research. But start to break down the things that you see and try to understand them. Everything has an origin. What is the origin of what it is that you see? What it is that you are soul searching for? What is the origin of it?
But you're taking this flower of life, which I personally believe, my hypothesis on the flower of life is that's the face of God.
Bingo.
It's the face of God. Yeah. You want to see creation. You want to see the divine energy, where it's coming from. You want to see everything that exists in a known and unknown universe. Well, there it goes.
Watch this. This is.
And it will be always a known and unknown universe. For we figured out only the function and the meaning of some of the flower of life. It has not been fully, how can I explain? Fully and deftly explained or broken down. Because I'm gonna have to leave that part out because that's part of class. But what I'm saying is this: you have to go and see what it is for yourself and do your own research. But the fact of the reason is, a lot of this stuff you might not even understand, let alone can your brain comprehend it. For example, if they ask you if you're a U.S. citizen, most of y'all will say yes. And all the ones that say yes don't know that to be a U.S. citizen, you have to live in D.C. If you don't live in D.C., by legal definition, by law, and by that 10-mile square, you're not a U.S. citizen. And if you don't believe me, go read the first Supreme Court case of Chisholm versus Georgia. Maybe that'll open your eyes a little bit. But back on topic, the flower of life is pretty much your whole key to your existence, your purpose, and where you're going. You just must understand your journey as you go through it to accomplish the character you build and the wisdom you gain passing the test that life's challenging you with. You have to have the will and the determination, the focus and discipline to get it done. Do the research. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to do it for you. Everybody else got their own agenda. What is yours? What is your plan? For the next 15 years, you got kids. What's your plan for them? If AI is planning on removing a lot of jobs and changing the use for a lot of college degrees, what is left for them? Starts to go back to skills and trades. Those are being taken too. So what do you do? That's where self-sustainability comes in.
Is us taking a basic physics simulator, the same simulator that they use at Princeton, at Oxford, that the students use at Harvard, and we put in a few massless particles. We didn't put any animation into it, nothing like that. And just ran the program with linchpins in their position. And just so the audience understand, linchpin is literally those 6 sides that come off of the tetrahedron. Each one of those ends up becoming a pentagonal shape based upon when it expands into a Myrdal shape, or its feminine component, magnetism, or the contractive side or the electric side is the tetrahedron. But the middle ground between it is the linchpin. And so when we put those linchpins in rotation, this is what came up. So what we basically did is at all of these individual points, we put 4 linchpins into rotation with each other.
Gotcha. Now your massless particles, would that be the Higgs boson?
those were just the massless particles. We put not massless particles. We put like 300,000 mass, particles inside it. I wasn't supposed to say massless. And these particles, just to give it rotation, and in the center of it, we gave it a harmonic, just an on and off harmonic. Gotcha. And allowing
when you look at that, do they not look like atoms that are splitting? When you look at those, do they not look as planets? What about galaxies that are merging? What about cells? What about your eyes? They all connect to the flower of life. What is your purpose?
It to play itself out without us doing anything but hitting play and letting it go through a few rotations of it.
Yeah.
This is what it ends up generating. Let me go up a little further. There. Should start moving now.
Yeah.
But when we edit, you'll be able to play the whole thing through inside of there. Yeah. But it ultimately rebuilt the planet Saturn with its rings and the hexagon that's found at the top. And this is without animation. Yeah. This is without any fudgery or pushing. Right. And this is without gravity. Without dark matter, without dark energy, just using linchpins and the vortices in association, we were able to rebuild this planet the same.
So what he's telling you is photons, they exist while bringing in light, but everything started in darkness. And then there was light. The Bible said that there be light, which means everything was in darkness before there was light. So that's where your dark matter comes from. Because that was the spark and the energy that created it all. That's why when you look into 666, it refers to a dark matter or melanated skinned people. No, you're not the mark of the beast. It's just a lot of this knowledge and wisdom. The Bible tells you to stay away from it. Because a lot of the stuff that he's talking about has to do with you being God yourself and discovering who you are. And the Bible says, has no other gods before me. That was all plagiarized throughout its history from many different places. And you'll find that out when you start discovering books that were written before the Bible that say the same as the Bible. So you'll discover a lot on your journey throughout your research, but it's all connected. All of it. Now the question is, what's next? What are you to do next that you don't figured out it's all connected? Come to class and we'll show you.
Same way that I said we would do in that interview where you first, showed love to me when everyone else was like, he's crazy. Right. You understood that I was talking about a simulation and not building the planet Saturn, but with the right vortices and technology, we now have the ability to rebuild a planet based.
Think about that. He said a simulation. Many say we are living in a simulation now. Let's put two and two together. He took light and created another life. Well, recreated another life. He said he recreated Saturn. But it was a simulation. Now imagine using light just to do that. Imagine what you can do when you have both light and dark matter together. You have what you see before you today. But what if you was to take dark matter and make a simulation? And at the end of that simulation, it completes a whole new cycle that has nothing to do with the flower of life and distracts you and binds you to a purpose that you was not born or lived to do. Some of y'all know it as a system. Some say the system's meant to keep you down. That's when you should start learning your laws. Read the Constitution, people. You read the Constitution, the Sixth Amendment will help you out a lot. A lot. Just read the Constitution and get your Black's Law Dictionary. You'll start finding out a lot of the stuff that the Constitution says they're not allowed to do. You wonder how they do it. Because the thing is, they figured out a lot of this stuff with the flower of life and hid it from you and figured out what was next for them to do. Now it's time for you to figure out the flower of life and do what's next for you and your family and others to better themselves.
Based on these wave conjugations, this is what it's able to do, and it's repeatable.
Yeah,
it's something that they could. We put the entire description at the bottom of it of how this actually works.
Yeah.
What it, but
it's incredible that it even creates the hexagonal shape at the top of Saturn.
At the top,
which has been a big question mark
of how that came to be.
Right, but it's through the natural formation, through this process of the opening of this flower of life, the energy pattern that exists throughout the known universe, and involved in the accretion process of creating the planet, and then you get this shape, this formation.
If you look at this, like I'll read this off, just so the audience will understand it. It says the following models are gravity-free physics simulations and are not animations nor CGI graphics in the standard sense, as there are no keyframe animations present. All of the forces being used are externally applied vortexes only, and limited use of central or offset magnetic fields. There are no other internal attraction forces present in the simulation, meaning there are no gravity in there.
Yeah.
They are using emulated particles of specified masses in conjunction with specific externally applied forces, harmonic resonances, and emulated magnetic fields only. Everything that came from here came from.
Now, when you heard all of that, it might have got lost, but when you put all of that together, and he says he made this and it had no gravity. We got gravity. Everything has a gravitational pull. But when you hear that and you compare it to the world today, what are you really seeing?
From just how nature would react to these vortices in relation. And this is without creating 96% imaginary material for the universe.
Yeah.
I mean, based on the scientific method, this should be the proper walk and should be considered. It should be being tested. I have it on my front page of my book with all of the things, how we built the simulator or the simulation. But it was all based on linchpin, which is all still based on that tetrad.
Right.
And to have this prediction ability to rebuild a planet in itself, and they've never been able to do this without adding imaginary stuff. This is nothing but true physics tapped into it.
You're talking about tapping into the real God power. Now, that's what you're talking about doing, tapping into the God power. You're talking about right now, we're a type 0 civilization. You skipped over type 1 and went straight to type 2 civilization, on the scale that they have for civilizations that could exist in the universe. And this is more like going into type 2. So you've really jumped past type 1.
We can manipulate the environment. So that means transmutation. If you can do this to an entire planet, you can do this to any element, and every element has a prime resonant frequency by which it bonds or breaks its bonds. Those prime resonant frequencies are easily discovered, through.
And that is true. But everybody has to do their research and go on their journey and know who they are. Because when everybody is on one frequency, it causes an attraction for another frequency. And when people grow and learn, society grows and learns. But if they keep dumbing down the education and removing stuff from out of history for you to know the truth, we came into existence to make sure the next generation does not end up losing the truth, the knowledge, and the wisdom. Because if so, everyone's doomed to repeat history because they don't know their history. It's either been rewritten, erased, or just not talked about no more. That's why I said, when you look at what was taught in schools all the way up to the 1920s, look what happened in the 1920s. Better yet, figure out where your public schools came from, who invented public schooling, and it'll connect you to the 1920s of the education of what we are sitting here listening to right now and breaking down to you that you was taught in schools that you're no longer taught anymore. But everybody has to come together and get on that frequency of growing. That's where the Christ consciousness will come back.
Resonance, you can through their light, their light forms, you can easily manipulate anything. But that,
remember, Jesus, some say Yeshua, that the things he do is of his Father, and you can do them too and greater. This is what he's talking about right now.
It becomes a threat because they've built their entire world off of inefficiency.
Yes. Everything is built off inefficiency. They monetize inefficiency. They monetize corrupt systems that don't function properly. Because
anybody ever notice shit ain't built like it used to be?
if you have a system that doesn't function properly, at some point the system is going to break down completely, even though it wasn't working properly to begin with. And that creates the ability for them to generate another ineffective system. And we're living in a world full of ineffective systems where we're being monetized on insufficient systems that don't really provide what they're supposed to provide. They're not giving us the maximum capacity of efficiency that we should be getting.
No, they profit and monetize the expectation of loss, the expectation of falling and drowning. And they're like, we're going to save you at this point. We're going to save you at this point. But they have, and you put money into those bonds of saving, and you never get saved. They just put it off. They put off the salvation. They put off your ability for liberty. When you'll be self-sufficient, they want you still at the nipple. And when you have the fundamentals, when you have the truth about you, you don't need any of that. Right. What we're able to do, I'm going to go to a screen again.
Okay.
Like with linchpins, one of the beautiful aspects is when four of them come together, you'll see what Tesla was talking about 3, 6, and 9. You'll see 1, 2, and then 3.
Yeah.
3 of the shafts bond.
That's beautiful. Looks like one of the drones that the military be using. Makes you wonder where they got the idea from, don't it? But that right there, I I've seen that, but not in color. I've seen it where it was all in black. And it was on a bigger scale than this. But it was, how can I say, it was, I don't know how to break it down to you without putting too much detail in it, because it might go over your head, it might not. But imagine walking into somebody's house and they got lampshades and it's like twisting and it has these crystals. Now imagine them crystals giving off a reflective light together on a table, but this table is glass. And in the middle of them two, when you walk and you hit it at a specific, very specific angle, in between the two of them, you see this. But it's a black, shadowy figure from the light's reflection. And when you look at it, I don't know how to explain it to you. Because I remember when I was in my teenage years and I walked into this lady's house and I saw it. And she set it up that way purposely. Because when I asked her and showed her about it, she said, yeah. And she set it up that way purposely. And I wish I would have known back then what I knew now. I would have asked more questions of what she knew about it. But it was amazing because the chandeliers gave the same image as the chandeliers gave an image on the floor through the table. And the table was given the same image, but the image was not on the floor. It was coming up from the table, which was amazing. The way the light reflects is amazing. And in the middle, you see nothing until you hit this specific angle. And you will see this. Like the stuff you were showing earlier, you will see it, but you will see it on a bigger and massive scale. But when you hit that angle, you see a dark shadow cast. And it shows you everything. And it's moving, it's vibrating. You can see the waves flowing through it as if it was pool water. Which means it was still living just as I was. But it's amazing the stuff you see in your life and don't understand. And then when you get older, it's like, bam, I remember this.
Then the next one will be, you'll see 6 bond.
Yeah.
And they're about to make a magnetic bond.
Yeah.
And when I say magnetism or magnetic, I'm saying they're about to expand out. As you can see, it's expanding from the center. And now you'll see 9 come in. And when Tesla said, if mankind understood the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, he'll have the keys to the secrets of the universe. You know, this doesn't happen by accident, and it repeats that same tetrahedral form when 4 of them come together. And then 8 of them will come to, or 4 of these will come together and still repeat the same pattern.
Wow.
That fractal pattern. And what's really beautiful and ties everything together, you'll see that all of them come around the tetrad.
Yeah. This is what sold me. This is what made me say, man, this guy figured out something that's so incredible, so dynamic. This is what should be on the mainstream news every night instead of the garbage that they've been feeding us.
This is what I saw, but on a bigger scale. Imagine it being another Tetran connected, and it's showing another one, and another Tetran connected, and it's showing another one. But it's amazing, man. It's just, when you see nature and God's creations, you can't do nothing but stand in awe.
This is going to force science to rewrite books.
This is the fractal.
Yes.
This is for bonding. You know, this is a magnetic bond. Let me show you how electricity behaves. Now, instead of, and you've seen this, but for the audience, instead of 4, now electricity is a higher density, always has a higher density, and it's always seeking a higher pressure condition. So instead of these bonding.
That goes back to what I was telling you about lightning. Yeah. Positive and negative, and there's clouds in the sky. You got positive on the ground. Meets in the middle, you get your lightning. There's your electricity.
At the edges, they are collapsing the dodecahedron in the center and generating energy. So it's a greater density, but smaller. It's a smaller space. But this is why electricity has so much power, because now that entire center that was here before, you can see how it has been ejected and collapsed, but this still makes the form of a tetrahedron. And these will keep bonding.
If you understood what he just said, you will learn how to get free electricity. Literally. Like, for example, if you was to understand what he was saying and go research Nikola Tesla, you could rebuild Nikola Tesla's machine. It's easy. You just got to understand the truth. You got to seek the knowledge. And once you gain that wisdom, there's nothing that can stop you. But it's easy to rebuild it. You just got to know what you're looking at and understand frequencies. Once you get all of that, like, a lot of people get on the frequency and get stopped right there. They got to get to the next level. But yeah, you don't get all your spirituality and the frequencies and everything like that. Now what? What's next?
And making other structures, predictable structures.
Yeah. And this now at 5, does it have electromagnetic force?
It's all electric. It's more electrically expansive.
Gotcha.
You know, so, and they'll keep bonding with other 5s and other 5s. And on the fringes, the 4s will balance themselves. But it's basically rebuilding the periodic table, atom for atom. And when we place these in the solar apex, it predicted entire new relationships between stars and constellations. But it also predicts where every star will occur on the galactic plane, on the celestial plane, and the ecliptic plane. And if you look at the colors going across the edges of these struts, those represent the individual atoms that make up the periodic table. With carbon or hydrogen, carbon, and silicon and cobalt being on those center places, and then on the far edges of those, you'll have on the red side you have your lithium, beryllium, boron, and then it just expands into the next octave, I mean, it's a concise story that's predictable and proven. Like, we were able to throw it into Chat GPT because now they're calling this the Howard comma. Like the Pythagorean comma. The Pythagorean comma is that portion of the periodic table. And if you watched on that Joe Rogan thing with Eric Weinstein, you'll see we were talking about the Pythagorean comma 109.47. Eric was saying that was a mistake, you know, that I wasn't aware of. And I was like, no, you don't build 50 patents off of it, with it being something you're unaware of. I was like, no, but it actually is an error correction code, because it allows, instead of them having the platonic solids, and what they love to do is divide the universe or the earth into cubicles. Into cubes, and now make prediction based upon where these cubes are overlapping. Whereas this is no longer based on the cube. This is actually based on those four corners that we were talking about. These four corners right here.
This is incredible. I mean,
this is the four corners that existed, that the Bible was talking about. The center of the earth. In order for this to exist, there's a sphere in here, a sphere in here, a sphere in here, and a sphere in here, and these four spheres interacting are.
Now imagine them four spheres are interacting. And you have four different worlds, four different galaxies, four different suns. Makes you wonder, when your spirit goes on, did you learn the lessons to be able to go to the next petal and cycle in the flower of life and learn? Because no one knows how many times your soul repeats the same thing over and over, and you feel like you've been there multiple times. Did you learn the lesson? Also, did you ever take the time to think about from four worlds, four galaxies, four suns, compared to not just your spirit traveling to each one, but the flower of life? I would give you the whole breakdown of it, but we teach that in class. That is the main secret that you will have to figure out. Because once you figure that out, you'll know what you have to do.
Responsible for all effects of nature.
Right.
And how they respond when other things bond with them. All of these things. And this is how we developed the linchpin. It was like, okay, well, they're not listening to it for its predictive value. So it was like, well, let's build it out and put props into those individual areas, and we'll invent tangential flight.
Which I saw.
Before he ended up taking it away, it looked like that military drone I was talking about earlier, don't it?
The tangential flight from you when we had our live, months ago. But can you pull that video up? Because that blew my mind. Because then I saw an application of the science. So it's one thing to have ideas, concepts, theories, but once you can see it being applied, it changes your concept and understanding of it completely.
Let's get it right here. Well, that's some of the patents. I'm gonna just pop it up here. We'll see a four bond of their use. Here's four of them coming together. And out of the vortices, we've attached now arms. But the four of these will now come together and lift this 50-pound barrel. And then five of them will come together and pick up the five collected barrels because of their collected thrust.
This is a whole new form of flight.
Entirely new form of flight, tangential flight, the ability to fly around your own center of mass, something they've never been able to accomplish with just six props. But this was low-hanging fruit from the linchpin. I wasn't trying to build flight vehicles. I was just trying to prove, I was like, if this is the fractal, I said we should be able to put props in those pentagonal areas, and it should have tangential flight. And the drone community hated me. They were like, how dare you hit us with something like this? And even though I made a gift for $25,000 a reward for anybody that was able to build the flight simulator with this, they were like, there were people that were saying, it's not possible to accomplish that. And within 2 weeks, we had it done. by putting it out into the universe. And now these 5, so this is the end of cranes, or this will be able to greatly assist in how we do construction and lifting and bringing things home. And they're all autonomous.
This starts making you even ask questions like, could this technology have existed in the...
Now think about that. When you look at that, it's like taking the military drones, you put them together to make something better. But now you start to understand, if it's able to help assist or replace cranes, lifting, and construction. You see how Amazon, UPS, and FedEx are all racing to be able to have a drone that can deliver your packages. Now, people be shipping all kinds of stuff. Always wondered how they was going to account for the weight. This right here counts for that weight.
Ancient past,
it had to
potentially help to build some of these megalithic structures.
It had to.
Yeah. Because you can lift an incredible amount of weight with this technology.
Any weight that you want.
Yeah.
And then you cut to, so those are some of the innovations that we've made in flight, but then you cut to what we've done in our propulsion systems. So this is a system and method for projectile propulsion. Now, what's interesting, instead of using any type of chemical propellant, what we've been able to do based on the geometry that we have is, you'll read it in the background. It's conventionally projectile weapons are powered by chemical potential energy that is converted into kinetic energy. For example, a conventional firearm round includes gunpowder, smokeless powder, or some other propellant that is ignited by a primer, which causes the propellant to deflagrate. Well, gases from the burning propellant becomes pressurized and expand, which push a projectile, such as a bullet or a slug, out of a firing chamber and through a bore of a gun barrel. While chemical-based projectile weapons have been the standard for hundreds of years, the small amount of propellant that can be practically placed in the small volume of the firing chamber limits the propulsive force that can be generated, and therefore limits the speed at which the projectile can be fired and the distance that the projectile can be shot. Well, the summary of this disclosure, and I'll just read this first paragraph. The present disclosure describes systems and methods for projectile propulsion, where the propulsive force is applied by an electrically overloaded capacitor, which causes a portion of the capacitor to explode and generate an explosive propulsive force to propel a projectile with substantially more force and at a substantially higher speed than is achievable by conventional powder-based rounds. So we're based.
What he pretty much explained to you was the difference of a projectile's firing rate and the causes and the differences of the projectile's firing rate. In case that went over anybody's head.
Basically able to take water and having it in a small chamber, and basically like if you were to think of an ice chest, if you were keeping ice, and you apply an electrical current, you can apply 1,000 volts through the same aperture that you can 1,000,000 volts.
Right.
And now with our geometry, that now is able to sustain that force. And since the water wants to evaporate at 1,700 times its normal volume, and it's unable to do that, now that becomes cubed. And so it immediately skips a gas state that it typically would go to, and it goes to a plasma state. And in that, it converts the gas state into a discharge. And it's basically...
And anybody getting confused, you got to go back to class. You got to remember this stuff when you were young and in school.
the lightning out of the barrel.
Gotcha.
So depending upon how much electricity you run in through one thimble of water, you can send something into space, or you can, send it outside of the solar system. Right. It's able to launch, and that's the goal, was for the linchpins to be launched into space.
Wow. So this would be something like riding a percussion wave. So is it something like you send the charge in and you create this expansion through this plasma, and then you do it over and over again and it rides this?
Yeah, you put it on a sustained thing. But if you think about, I'll give one secret away. Okay. If you think about Victor Schauberg's example of the fluidity of how water is supposed to move, now you're able to get an internal interaction that's sustainable, and then you provide a way out.
Gotcha.
So we're able to, it's basically lightning out of the barrel. It's ray guns, and then we patented it as a gun, but not because.
You want to know something? Remember Billy Carson talked about how a tablet of ray was used to stop people in their tracks from attacking them. And it's all based off of frequency, and how the government now has frequency weapons. How they got weapons that can send out mass sounds and frequencies that can not only scramble your brain, but cause you to think other things too.
As we were trying to make guns, we wanted to prevent anyone else from being able to make it as a weapon.
Gotcha.
But there's nothing that can stop this.
No. The applications are almost endless. Even running a combustion engine
off of this.
Yeah.
So
you can push the cylinders. I mean, this is crazy.
So we're there with so many different innovations that has affected so many different fields.
Yeah.
And we have the proof, and it makes geometric sense.
Yeah.
The universe gave us the ability to recognize the genetic coincidence of symmetry, so we would know that something is healthy,
right?
So that we know that it's safe, and we've lost that recognition that, okay, the eyes should be around the same place, nose should be in the right place, therefore that means that their organs are in the right place and it'll be healthy. Well, if we have the genetic or the symmetrical similarities and the harmony associated with this that registers in our eyes, it makes sense putting it together. Now we've innovated multiple fields with it. It should be explored. But when I went to the Black universities, because I was questioning 1 times 1.
Yeah, right.
I went to Morgan State and did an entire presentation.
Wow.
No one from the engineering department showed up. From the physics, from the chemical, from all that. We had to bus in students from outside to be there. And I shared these things there. But that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
None of the Black universities. And so I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So now, because all of this stuff is patented, I don't have to share it.
Right.
With those universities that were unwilling. But what does that do to Black people?
Yeah, it just holds us back even further. I mean, the opportunity was there. Sometimes we can't see the opportunity when it's standing directly in front of our face.
That is why we share knowledge. Because the thing is, you holding all the knowledge and not passing it on to the next generation, pretty much, you could have helped the next generation advance in some way, shape, or form. But you chose not to pass on the knowledge. So there's always a cause and an effect for your decisions. You always have a choice.
It's because we've been so systematically put into this mindset or this mental prison. And we want to follow the system exactly as it's been laid out for us. We've been institutionalized in that way from birth all the way through adulthood. So now here you come with the keys to the universe, and they're blind to it. It doesn't even exist in their eyesight. They can't even see it, even though you put it right in front of them.
And that's the most heartbreaking aspect of it. If I wanted to explore some of the...
You can go through that a lot, especially with family and some of your friends. You're going to bring them the truth, and they might black sheep you, look at you like you're crazy, call you crazy, or say you stupid. It's not their fault. The education was just dumbed down ever since the 1920s. So what you don't know can and will affect you.
Magnetic field. Even, and that's with the opposite of the linchpin. This is me expanding the linchpin out, or the tetrine, to its fullest place, and it become mirrored all shapes. But this is the magnetic field. This is predicting every particular waveform. Inside of this is a water hammer. It's a transmitter. It's a receiver. It's a
fractal of DNA almost, to me. Incredible. Yeah.
We call it transcendental lighting. So what are we doing now?
Right.
Why are we?
It's like a DNA. It's like the face of God. Creation. We are our Father. We are one.
We still in this hidden space. I'm going to close this up now.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't.
I know you had touched on the error correcting codes, and they were talking about the Terry comma, which is kind of like a quantum error correcting code, right? So let's talk a little bit about the error correcting codes. For those people who don't know, I wrote a book called Fractal Holographic Universe, and in that book I used some of the science, or referenced some of the science from Professor James Gates Jr., who really is a master in supersymmetry and theoretical physics. And he did some work on error correcting codes. He actually discovered these things called Adinkra codes.
Yeah.
Right? And these Adinkra codes, and you take these patterns, you put them into a three-dimensional space. There's this mathematics encoded into them, and these mathematics are called error correcting codes. What he discovered, though, these are the same codes that are running the universe, but also on the smaller scale, they're the same exact error correcting codes that run search engines and web browsers. So the universe as a whole is running on the same exact coding that we're using to run search engines and web browsers on our computers and phones.
Or they're trying to, because half they're...
Now you see where they all get it from?
One of the things Alan Watts said, the thing that takes us so long to gain an education is we look at the world and we take it all in as one big thing, one big picture. But when you're learning about the world, it's all laid out in these lines, and you've got to read each line on each page, and it takes so long for us to understand. We can't just go to the end of a book and pick it up and have the picture or see a overall picture of it. We have to go through all of these millions and millions of miles of lines of information, because they've laid it out linearly and are no longer doing it based on how the universe does it. A whole grand picture. You're thrown right into the water and you become hyper aware of everything around you. That's how the universe is supposed to behave with it. So they'll have different patterns for, okay, we'll do it as a dodecahedron, and we'll have these, and they'll act like Feynman diagrams, and we'll try these out.
So are you aware of the things around you, the things that are going on and that are happening around you? Like I said, the things you don't know can and will affect you.
And then we'll try the tetrahedrons together, but they'll only give us so much. And they were used to, when I was studying civil engineering, I remember there was an error correcting code for every 10 feet of rope that we had, or of measuring tape. We had to account for 1 inch of sag. And then we had to take into account the wind and if there were any weather conditions on it. But these error correcting codes would kind of give us an approximation, but it still never gave us what the linchpin and these wave conjugations are able to bring in.
Perfection. And so the point I was trying to get to was that with the quantum error correcting code, which is what I love the name, you know, the Howard comma, you know, it's a good name. I mean,
I'm just hoping that I'm doing the research to see if Howard is my true last name or if it was the name of a plantation.
Okay.
You know, if it was the name of the plantation that my family was disenfranchised and owned at, then it won't remain the Howard comma.
I understand that. I get that. Trust me. But what's interesting is though I looked up some science, you know, and I want to read directly from what I was able to pull up based on putting your information into the database and seeing what this system would spit out as to what are some of the potential inventions or, you know, revolutions that could come from the QECs. And what I found was just amazing. And we'll talk about this a little bit too. We'll talk about maybe some of these and just expand on them. Like the first one is faster than light communications. FTL communications. We're talking about quantum entangled communication, leveraging the Howard comma as a natural quantum error correction tool. This FTL communication system could enable instantaneous long distance messaging by keeping the quantum state stable over vast distances. And that's really been one of my dreams, actually, is to be involved in some kind of way creating this, or being involved in a company building a quantum communications device. I brought this up to you before I even knew you were going to send me that science that you sent me the other day.
Yeah, and we didn't, Chris Seeley put into, there was a paper recently written, I'll get the name of it. In the paper, they were comparing the Pythagorean comma to the Howard comma, or what they're calling the Howard comma, and showing that they were two separate things, but that it actually pulled it together. So he pulled this into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT began to rebuild the universe, or have a picture of laying out a framework for universal potential under different conditions. And it came up with this Howard comma, this error correcting code that is able to do faster than light travel. Like one of the biggest things that would be a hindrance in faster than light travel is you got to go through different areas of the universe where there's noise. And in that noise, based on their uncertainty, understanding, and Schrodinger equations in which they try to the probability effect of those things, where they're trying to understand the universe, and it's through canceling out what might have happened instead of being able to go directly to the source. Like in Star Trek, Scotty came up with the ability to do transwarp.
Yeah, they go through the transwarp. So the Borg gave them the idea, I think, in one of the season's episodes of a different version of
that
Star
you can
Trek.
be at warp drive and still be able to transform or whatever. I forgot what that's good. Beam me up, to be able to beam, you know, at transwarp. That was a big theory, teleportation in there. I'm like, oh, well, we're the means by which quantum entanglement takes place. It's being able to lock into another particle or another position. You lock this spaceship into here. You lock it with this particular tone, and now the linchpin, or the Howard comma, is able to keep communication, and is able to predict where this particular object or particle will be, and be able to maintain subspace communication. It doesn't matter the speed at which it's traveling at, or its position, or what field it's going through. It's able to predict all distribution of matter.
It's beautiful.
It doesn't get, I don't care what they've been doing in these universities. None of it comes up to this. If I'm going to throw modesty aside. It does.
You see that? Look at the orbits, the elliptical. You see how it all came about?
Doesn't come up to this. This is the fractal.
This is it.
This is the entire subspace of we have defined the electric force, the gravitative force, the contractive force of the universe, the micro, and patented it, and have proven out subsystems in it. We've defined the magnetic expansive force, and have patented those, and have built systems on it, and have proven them out. And we've patented the common factor, the constitution between it, which is the linchpin, which creates its own thing. It's like this is the gift that mankind has been waiting for.
This is it.
But what do they do with it? They will keep kicking it to the side until I'm no longer here, and they'll think they'll walk through it. I didn't tell them what the true value of pi was.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I've left out. Because I did something different from what Tesla did.
Yeah.
Tesla made the mistake of writing everything in Serbian or in English and all of his notes so they can go and do his stuff.
They went and took it all.
When this came to me, I created an entirely new language for it that me and my family and the people that work closely with me, all of the secrets are tied into there.
Oh, wow.
You know, pi is a whole number. Pi is not 3.141592653589 That's not the value of pi. Pi is a whole number.
Oh, wow.
And if they understood that the universe does not multiply because a confined space is not able to multiply, the way the universe multiplies is by dividing and becoming more.
It continues to divide over and over again.
It divides itself.
Big, giant, gas.
Now, a lot of people who are in business understand the word fractionalize. And that's what the universe is doing. And I'm not talking about just any business. I'm talking about the ones who are in big business, the ones who are running companies that you wouldn't even think about running, that aren't even talked about being ran on a normal basis. Most companies got the idea from here. Everything comes from the fractal. You just got to understand what it is that you're looking at. But you have to seek the knowledge to even know where to go to find it. And once you get that wisdom from finding and the knowledge, then you will see. But you got to put in the work or stay blind to the fact and continue to live a lie. Do you live in truth or do you live in lies?
Clouds divide themselves and become stars. And then those stars eventually live their life and they explode and it divides again and it creates more gas, which then the gas then forms into more stars and more solar systems.
And contract together and keep recontracting itself together. So we have to revisit our understanding of multiplication, because multiplication, that means it would go against the laws of conservation of energy.
Right.
If it's not truly just division. And so I've approached mathematics from that number theory idea and concept, and look at what it's produced. It's produced all of these things. It's
And to me, I mean, just thinking, and I could be wrong on this, but if the universe, as the way they describe it, seems to violate the law of conservation of energy if it continues to grow and expand with no new energy coming in, because you're violating. Like if I try to make a perpetual motion machine that runs off of only magnets, there's only so much power I can get out of it.
It has to interact with something else.
It has to.
And so our universe expands out like our solar systems expands out in the Oort cloud, and it bumps into other solar systems, which regenerate it. And then when four of them come together at 120-degree angles, then guess what? They convert back from magnetism and expanding into an electric charge. And now they're going from southwest, and now they're going northeast, and they're headed back to the poles of the star and the poles of the planets to go back into the process again. That's the breathing mechanism of our universe.
Yeah, because the universe is alive.
It's a living being.
It's a living being.
We're little creatures on this living being that's like, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, just like we have bacteria in our gut that's alive. We have
mating.
Right? I mean, we have microscopic bugs on our skin,
That's keeping us clean from the monsters. We have macrophages inside of our spleen and our blood system that attack any cell that's not up to par and eats it alive. And that's why fasting, if you have some kind of cancer or illness, a tumor, the body will cannibalize itself for anything that's non-useful.
Yep, that's a fact.
You know, if you're suffering from all of this stuff, that the potential gifts for humanity with vaccines, if you're suffering any of that stuff, all you have to do, take the time, fast, and allow those blood clots themselves to have to be eaten by the body.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to go through the desperation of not eating for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Force the body to turn on new genes.
Yeah, and I'm a witness.
It's the greatest thing in the world to fast. After you do it, you get used to it. But you got to have the discipline and the focus. It's a great feeling in the energy you have when you stop poisoning your body with processed foods and all the bad stuff, and you cleanse it and flush it out. Your body is made of 70% water. Recycle, keyword cycle, the water. Put good water in. Stop eating bad stuff, and it flushes out all the bad stuff. Get you some dandelions. Because the thing is, that one with chemicals are sprayed on it. One where you know it's in wild in nature. That plant cleans your liver and your bloodstream. If you go look in Walmart, they sell it in the tea section. But it's an antioxidant, just like blueberries. Too much, it turns into a laxative. So use in moderation.
To what happens, I didn't eat for a couple of weeks, and I lost 22 pounds. My body cannibalized itself. But I reset everything.
And you're all clear again.
I'm all clear. I'm completely reset. And completely, you know, in a weird kind of way, it was one, I can't say this is a great thing that happened to me, but
everything's a blessing.
Health-wise, yes, it's one of the greatest things that happened to me health-wise, because I feel completely renewed. You know, I have a fresh start physically.
Same.
It's incredible.
Same.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about one of the other aspects that it said with the quantum entanglement, what it's capable of ultimately doing. The conclusion was the Howard comma could be modeled as this is what ChatGPT said.
Yeah.
This is not me putting words into it. This is them analyzing the patterns, analyzing the linchpin, analyzing the geometry and the grand unified supersymmetry associated with it and its potential uses. It says, the Howard comma could be modeled as a sub-quantum field constant that acts as a harmonic and geometric correction across quantum fields. By stabilizing and aligning quantum states, it could provide a foundation for faster than light. Wow, faster than light.
Yeah.
Faster than light, subspace communication through non-local interactions and harmonic resonances.
Yeah.
You know, that's
life-changing, because now you can have deep space travel. Because one of the biggest problems is, let's say we hop on a spaceship and we're using conventional rocketry, and we get ourselves all the way out to Jupiter, and we want to communicate back with home base on Earth. That's going to take a long time. It could take a month.
They'll be bouncing it in their straight line ideas in comparison to staying entangled, and harmonically locked and linked.
Yes. And the only delay you'll have in communicating with Earth is how much time did it take your ship to broadcast to the nearest communications array. So if you're only, 2 million miles away from a communications array, a few minutes for them to get the signal, instantaneously transmit it to Earth, instantaneously transmit it back to the communications array, 8 minutes to get back to your ship or whatever the number is. So yeah, it's just, it's a way of really making.
Sounds like sunlight. When you have the scientific of the distance of what it takes to hit Earth, you start to realize a lot of this stuff and information they got, where they got it from.
deep space travel a reality?
Well, because we go past the noise. The noise occurs in the magnetic field, in the expansion of it. The noise occurs in the spheres interacting, in those spheres that we are interacting with. We call those the electron cloud. That's the noise that's getting in the way. So if you could get to the electric side of it, which these pathways, the linchpin, those struts show you the direction of the electric side. So you're able to bypass that noise and stay, because magnetism is always out here. That's noisy. The electricity is going to be right
so you can
here
stay more
in
coherent.
the center. Yeah, right there. Right there. And so everything becomes possible. If you apply these things, there's no field of human interest or endeavor that cannot be benefited from having the fundamentals, re-examining the fundamentals. So I keep asking universities out there that care about having a future, take the time to explore these things. If you explore them and you want to have a conversation, then we can talk about licensing, and we'll make you the most powerful university on the planet, because everyone else will have to come to you in order to get that. But it'll be on the first come, first serve.
Right.
You know, now it's no longer just open to the Black universities that I was hoping would come and support. You know, I have to now step outside, but if they don't want to explore it, then we are producing linchpin. We are producing our lives. We are producing the harmonic wave resequencer, you know, as we speak. We have my people working on all of this stuff. So you just won't be a part of the future if you don't apply yourself to the present. And get away from that past garbage that we've been taught.
Everybody can't go.
No, they can't.
The problem with some of these universities is they get their funding, these engineering, these science, they get the funding, and their funding is based off of speaking the same old-fashioned dogma. And once they go one iota out of the parameter of what they've been told they can stay in, they get the threat of losing funding. But people have to realize that there's other people out there that are interested in funding and being a part of something innovative and change in the world. We have to let go of this safety box mindset, staying inside the box and being safe, and think outside of the box. And that's where all the joy and the bliss is, when you start maneuvering through the universe and walking your true power and let go of the fear. The best part of life is on the other side.
Yeah, and it's like Stanford University and its relationship with Hewlett Packard, because it has a self-sustaining endowment. Stanford is able to move, with ubiquitous carelessness, because they have their own funding coming from the products that they're producing, and they've been able to accomplish this with fundamentals that are now basically becoming antiquated. If you're able to accomplish that, so imagine what a university will be, an engineering school and department will be able to do with these things. You won't need the government funding. You won't need to answer to anyone except to truth. And that's where we should be right now. But the truth is it's a hot thing to hold, or cold. I think the truth is really cold, and you can't keep it next to you unless you come down.
I believe it, man. Another invention that came out of the ChatGPT from putting your science into it, holographic data storage retrieval. So they're saying that the Howard comma could allow for holographic error correcting codes, enabling data to be stored in a higher dimensional holographic subquantum field.
Well, instead of it being laid out linearly and binary, and binary communication, and that's how I said it's so much information.
Line by line
by line, you're able to now lay it according to a grid. There's 12 panels on the linchpin. Those 12 panels will also immediately resonate to the 12 tones in music theory. So you're able to use musical theory and layer information, fold it together the way the universe folds it together, to where you just create vortices instead of these long extended lines. So it's not like something needs to be developed or explored. No, the information is right there. The Howard comma, the equation for it has already been written out and created. Now it's just applying it.
So you're talking about storing data in a volume versus storing data in a line.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, it's looking at something and hearing that thing for the moment and not for all of this unnecessary movement.
Right.
Catching it right here and containing it back into the seed that expands out. And like Lorentz, one of the things he talked about was his electron model. And the problem with it, he thought the electron started as a sphere, and then it began to become expanded out. It to turn into an oval the further away it got out. But the truth was the electron, or that cloud, starts off in compression as like those petals on the flower of life.
Right.
You know, like there's a guy, Michael Evans, you know, who a contemporary of mine, who was working on opening the flower, and he had the tetron ray, the trion ray, which was those petals. But that's how an electron behaves at the start under high pressure. It goes into the low pressure that it expands out as a sphere. So when we're able to take high pressure information from high pressure states and lock them into a system where they're refracted within the entire system. And that's what this does. It allows you for those 12 different spaces to where the information is just basically stored in a crystal of water.
Yeah.
It's stored in the water itself. Like John Keeley, his water didn't make the machine work. The water and the machine would work together and find a sympathetic harmony and then be able to multiply its interaction or potential. That's what we need.
Talking about combining hardware with molecular.
Yes,
the two go together.
The two life forms, because like if you want to multiply, you know, this fraction by this fraction, you have to make them dimensionally equal. So you find the life force in each one. The life principle is represented in its prime resonant frequency. Then you will find common factors by which they can interact. And that's one of the things that the Howard comma does, is it lays out those interactions, or where those vortices meet, and those are those common areas.
And it keeps a stable connection between them. And this is powerful stuff. Wow. Another one, quantum subspace navigation. So it says, using the Howard comma as a guide through subspace, this navigation system would allow a spacecraft to detect and compensate for variations in space-time, making it viable for interstellar exploration. It could also be used as an advanced quantum sensor to ping subspace layers, detecting gravitational anomalies or other cosmic events in real time.
Well, again, it's just laying out a framework.
Yeah.
You know, depending on the condition, the pressure conditions, whether it's the motion and pressure conditions of a given area, you can either take different ratios of the Howard comma and break them down into the Tetrian, into the Huntian, into the Aubrian, into the heavenly, or some of these other aspects of it. But you're able to predict where the matter will distribute based on its density and the conditions. And then, but it also takes into account, like the linchpin, you don't have it just going in one direction linearly. It goes in all directions, expanding volumetrically the way the universe behaves. So it predicts all the same volumetric similarities. So you're able to predict where this will go. Like if you want, I'll give a secret away. If you wanted to travel from here to the other side of the galaxy, you can use a lot of propellants, you can use a lot of time, or all you have to do is behave like a bubble does. If it's in opposition to the environment it's in, it's going to seek a place where it has equanimity and balance. So it's going to rise on its own. You wrap yourself in the key of that other galaxy. Or the edge of that galaxy. You wrap yourself up in that vibration. Guess what? You don't need to use any energy except maintaining that vibration. And the universe will move you over here, because if you're at a tone that is discordant to the area you're in, you will have that Magnus effect of a bubble, and you can move your.
What he just broke down to you was how to be a god in your own environment. You must be focused and disciplined to vibrate on a higher frequency. And as you're focused and disciplined on your purpose and goal, vibrating on a higher frequency, There will be opportunities presented to you to accomplish and further that goal and purpose presented by the universe. The opportunities are in front of you for you to take them. If you don't take them, it's not coming back. Because think about all the work you had to do just to get that opportunity to come. All the years of work you put in just for that small amount of an opportunity to come in. So don't expect it to come back if you miss it or if you turn it down. When you are vibrating on a certain frequency, you are attracting certain things into your space. It could be good or bad, depending on whether you're on a high or low frequency vibration. But when you are at that high frequency, like he said, you just got to stay focused and disciplined on that frequency. And you will magnetize yourself and attract what it is you've been seeking.
Yourself based on taking on tone and taking off tone. That's the secrets that's been given to us. And now we have the geometry that predicts those tones.
Right.
And now we have the applications for it and building them. It's predictable. That's where we need to be walking towards.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. I just want to live long enough to see some of this stuff happen because it's incredible. Then we have the, okay, well, here's something interesting. We're talking about 0-point energy now. Resonance-based power generation. By utilizing the harmonic corrections from the Howard commas within a sub-quantum field, it might be possible to generate power through resonance with a 0-point energy or space-time harmonic.
Well, think about how resonances behave, or that S term.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually a full vortice that's happening. So it's pushing up, and then if this is pushing up, you create this energy. Like they do something like that with the harp.
Yeah.
The harpo.
Harp,
it's called harp.
They have that in on the west coast of the United States.
Yeah, and they send these microwaves up and create a big bubble on the surface of the earth. That bubble gets hit by particles, and it brings it back into the earth's environment. Well, that's the same way, but now we're doing it on a microscopic level. But we're not doing it with.
For those of you who don't know, harp is a weather machine. If you don't understand how they made it, I don't remember if it was in Mississippi or Missouri, but it's all over YouTube. The news even did a casting about it, how they said they was building a rocket launch site and were paying people to move. And the ones that didn't move, they used a rocket blasting sound to drown them out. Now, when you see the newscasters standing out there, you see the clouds come out of there, and then you see rain come out of nowhere.
Microwaves, we're actually doing it with, with the dopamine that the universe likes. We're not forcing it with heat. We're bringing it with the shape that it wants. So you draw in energy by creating the condition here. Then the snapback is going to keep a flow of energy, and then you put that on its own resonance, on its own repeating timer, and you're able to generate an untold amount of energy. Like even with the projectile propulsion patent, we're getting 180% out of it, which is over unity. So no matter what charge we put in there, we're multiplying its potential. Proven. It's already proven. That's why the patent was granted. So now I'm just like, oh, wow, do I have to go to other countries in order to bring these things to light, you know? Or will my parent country support the steps, the innovation? Because I'm not going to just sit it quietly and relegate myself to just being some actor, turning tricks for, turning emotional tricks for tips.
I understand. I get it. I understand what you mean.
It's enough of that.
Yeah. And in what you just said, talking about the shape, helping to generate that energy wave, scientists did experiments with pyramids, tetrahedrons, And they found that if you put plants and grow plants inside of a tetrahedron shape, the plants grow faster because it harnesses more energy, more natural energy from the universe.
Resonant energy that's going back and forth, that oscillatory thing, that's always happening, that thing we feel in here and makes us connect, but then we're told, nope, you got to look away. You can't connect with people. You can't stay locked in. You know, when you allow yourself to align geometrically properly with individuals and you talk from the place of God, then God speaks.
Right. Absolutely. Another.
In the Bible, it talks about when you assemble, he will be there. It's amazing how when you understand the parables in the Bible too. So this is what it means to be with like minds. Change your environment, remove negative people, and get with like minds. But then you vibrate on a higher frequency.
When they said quantum-based cosmic internet. So we have the World Wide Web, but they're talking about the cosmic web, right? So they say an interconnected web of quantum communication channels stabilized by the Howard comma, enabling near instant data transfer between planetary systems. We can be on Mars and instantaneously get something off Google from here.
And if we can get that information as traveled through electricity, then that electricity can also be transformed or collected together, and it's the doorway for teleportation.
Right.
At the end of the day, if you can send the sound, you can send the image. If you can send the image, you can send the condition. If you can send the condition, you can send the person.
Yeah. Well, because the Howard comma can predict. Is it the Howard comma that's predicting? That's the error correcting.
No, the Howard comma, actually, it's like if we put, like I said, you put the linchpin in the solar apex, it predicts every star on the galactic, the celestial, and the ecliptic plane. So it's actually predicting where those stars are going to be, and therefore you can predict where the moons are going to be. Now you can predict where other planets are going to interact with it, and you can have a full model and know where every atom is going to. That's what's been given to us.
That's the key. So in teleportation, the secret is you have to know where every atom is, its spin rate and its vibration, so that now if you have the cosmic internet or the capability of doing that, you have an enormous, unlimited amount of storage capacity, which is the biggest problem in teleportation. We can only teleport like one particle at a time right now. But all of a sudden, if you can predict in a biological human being or even an animal, right, or even this table, where every atom is and the resonant frequency of that atom, and transmit that instantaneously, now you can teleport a person, a table, a building, a house, anything you want.
Well, because you're not breaking it down into individual particles. You're actually wrapping the entire system. And that entire system slips into the in-between spaces. That system, the vibratory force, you can't distinguish where it's at anymore. And so it takes the smallest position. Even though it's still vibrating and covering this entire space of who you are right here, but you're only seeing it having this effect. It's just an illusion of our size of where we are. So when you let go of that illusion, now you're able to generate anything in any place that you want. And those particle replicators, all of that is true.
So when you stop living in lie and start living in truth, and you start to see, you start to manifest what can be.
You know, replication and everything. Which will free the world. You're talking about 0-point energy, which means everybody has power right where they are. No need for a power grid. Teleportation, taking the pressure off of travel, right? You're talking about food replication. You're having food directly where you are, instantaneously having access to food, bypassing the whole system of these patented seeds and all this GMOs and everything else.
Recreate the condition for them. That's all you have to do with transmutation. Recreate the condition of this particular element. You don't need to have gold inside or silver inside of your electronics. All you have to do is create the condition of them, and therefore have the electronics carry themselves over. The electrical charge or the signal will carry itself over if you know how to create the condition. And that's a bit of tongue-in-cheek right now.
So when you create the condition of your frequency, the electric will move over to you, attract to you, and then you stay in that condition, and there you go. But what he's speaking on is a much more deeper level than just that. He's also talking about being able to create and produce from what is already there with the same laws and fundamental principles that have always been there but were never taught.
I'm not letting all of that out.
And I get it, man. Well, this is a great conversation. This is just mind blowing. Just a conversation I've wanted to have for a long time.
I know.
A long time.
What was? I just got a question for you.
Go ahead, man.
What was when you first stepped out?
Yeah.
And started questioning the conditions and the information that you had been taught.
Mm-hmm.
When you first started questioning that, what was the response from your family?
Oh man, it wasn't good. My initial response, well, my mother understood everything. She got it. Now, I wasn't giving her a lot of deep knowledge yet because I was very young, but she was open to whatever I was telling her. Little things that I was seeing and begin to question. She was, look into it, or, advanced beings exist. She didn't say alien, advanced beings exist.
Yeah.
But outside of my mother, everyone else thought I was just crazy. They didn't believe it. They questioned it. They were scared of it. Some of my kids were scared of the information, scared of what I was saying, what I was learning, what I was researching. I've had family members tell me that I was worshiping Satan and I was going to burn in hell and I wouldn't make it to paradise, because some of them were Jehovah's Witnesses.
My family were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, so that it's paradise, not heaven. So I would, so I was when I was building this Fort Terra Nova project, this underground base back in the 2000s, early 2000s. I was told that it's just all Satan and devil worship and all this kind of stuff. And anything that I questioned or anything that I perceived to be different or came up with a different hypothesis or thesis on it, it was all scoffed. It was it was pretty bad. It took some time, but my oldest daughter and my youngest son resonated to it more. Now, our son that we have, he's only 12 now. He resonates with everything we're talking about. So out of the 6 kids, 3 are resonating. The other 3 aren't really resonating. But my relatives, my siblings, I should say, my siblings, no.
Yeah, you're still the devil to them.
Oh yeah, I was told that I must have sold my soul to the devil, and all the. But I'm always good when they need some money, though. When they need some money, I'm always a good. The money's good. The devil money's always good when they need the money.
Yeah, and then they thank Jehovah for you giving them the money. It's a fascinating little world, but. Like, I felt guilty because I'm the one that helped my brothers become a Jehovah's Witness. I talked to them about it, and it did teach me a lot about finding the truth, but I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to go to the very truth. And in looking at some of the doctrine and the information, it wasn't at the source. It wasn't the source. It was maybe a 4th or 5th rendition of some source material, but I wanted to see the source code. And you have to dig for that yourself. And Walter Russell said it, the universe she's a very jealous, nature is a very jealous God. And she only reveals her secrets when you are alone and in private with her, in your soul. So it's like you've got to get to that place and reconnect with the universe. You don't need information from anyone else. I told you, half of these things I would wake up in my dream and I would go back to that place where the older version of myself who was talking to me, so there's an interaction between who you are now, who you will become, and who you have been in the past, because we think about where we were. So we keep the past in there instead of locked into the future.
You must remember. You can't forget. You must do your best to remember. If you have an issue when you wake up or remembering your dreams, as soon as you wake up, write down what you do remember. You don't have dreams for no reason. They all are telling you something. You just got to learn the lesson in it. But if you think about that, how many times have you reflected on your past? How many times have you reflected on your younger self and what you used to think to conduct your life today? It's all one. It's all building character and making you who you are. That you have a chance to change and better that and make it what you want. You just gotta follow the laws and rules to the game. Because when you do, keys fall into your lap that open doors. But when you don't put in the work, stay focused and disciplined and burn the midnight oil and do your own research, you would never know what could be or what is. And you will continue to live your life the way you have been living it. But it goes back to the question, are you living in truth or are you living in a lie?
But whatever that being was, whatever that condition that was taking place within me, that allowed for an older version of myself to come and give me guidance at 4 and 5. And it was basically the guidance to follow. You don't need their information. I'm going to give you the ability to wake up inside your mind, go to the Akashic record, and the proof will be in the patents. The proof will be in the innovations. The proof will be in the products. And the proof will also be in your nature. You know, my nature, you know, even though I've played so many bad guys.
With the Akashic records, some of us have been there and a lot of us have not. But at the end of it all,
Yep.
at the end of it all, you got to realize that you got to remember, because I've been there. I remember my dream being in there and I got to see and know everything I wanted to know. And I went to ask one question of why. And I was cast out. But I was left with an equation as I was cast out. But any knowledge I wanted, it appeared right in front of me in blue lettering on a black background with stars behind it. And when I entered it, it was an arch, like a stargate. On the other side of that stargate, it was all black, but inside you could see the stars and everything. And I went in. Because before I got to that stargate, I was headed to a white ball of light. And I remember they said, if you go to the light, you're going to repeat and forget everything you know and repeat this life again. So in my mind, that dream became a lucid dream. And I started to dodge that light. And that's how I got to that stargate and was able to see in the Akashic records. But I was left with an equation that helped me solve the flower of life. But you got to do the research and the work.
Like, I will take my time and will not kill anything in my house. You know, I call the fly while it's trying to land someplace, even though my wife wants me to kill it because it could spread germs. I'm just calling it Terry, because I know Terry doesn't want to be locked inside this house and doesn't want to get hit with this fly swatter. I know Terry's looking for a way out.
Yeah.
You know, come on, Terry, just be.
Think about that. They talk about reincarnation. What if you was to come back as a blade of grass? You heard that joke before. What if you came back as a fly? Would you want someone to have the same compassion of life that he's having for that fly? If you was that fly on the wall, how many people said they want to be able to fly on that wall just to hear and see something? But would you really want to be killed, or would you want someone to value your life just as life is always valued?
still. And I put that energy out. And 9 times out of 10, I'm always able to capture it and take it outside. And, you know, and I feel this weight lifted off of me because they walk in there thinking that everything's going to be fine and exploring. They don't know it's a death trap. You know, and they don't want to destroy your food. They're just trying to cooperate and coexist with us. So we have to start recognizing, you know, an ant lives for 15 years on average. When you smash one of them, you're destroying great relationships. So it's taking everything into account. When you're aware of the universe is aware of you. When you ignore the universe, then you no longer exist to the universe itself. But the moment that you look at it, the universe looks back and smiles.
It's a mirror, and it's a mirror of your energy too. Absolutely. And I try to tell people that because we know that through the double slit experiment that, you know, electrons are conscious because they make conscious decisions to collapse themselves into digital bits of matter or become waves of potential. That means that everything is conscious. And if everything is conscious, then we have to treat everything with a certain level of respect and dignity and grace. That's exactly what you're talking about. Imagine teaching your kids from the time they're born that their clothes, their backpack is conscious.
Everything's alive.
Everything's alive. And if they understood that and you taught them respect and dignity towards those things, they wouldn't disrespect their toys, their clothes, and others because they'd be brought up believing that everything is alive.
Everything is, and not just alive, everything is made from the Creator and is the foundation and the fabric of the Creator. So when you disrespect anything, you are disrespecting yourself. You know, it's like putting a cigarette out on your own hand or arm just because you don't have the ability to feel it.
Right.
You lack that ability to feel it. Maybe you should work on your senses so that you can become aware of the things that you're supposed to be taking in. And that's what the meditation is supposed to do. But when we're unaware of where we've come from, when we're unaware of where we're going, you know, then we can't find a destination that we want. Like right now we have, we're putting a foundation together for the museum. It'll be the Black History Inventors Hall of Fame Museum. You know, the first museum that's ever been dedicated to just Black inventors and our massive contributions to the world we live in. You know, whereas other races, they have so many of their idols and their ancestors that they can turn to look for guidance and say, you know what, I can become an astronaut. You know what, I can become I can become a neuroscientist. You know, because such and such did this, I can make this innovation. Black people, oftentimes, all that's presented in front of us, I can become this pimp, I become this drug dealer, I can become this athlete, you know, I can become this rapper. And we see where that whole...
That's what we're shown over and over and over, and the programming goes in and your brain says, oh, this is what I can be. This is the pinnacle of what I can get to, not realizing that there's so much more.
No.
And it's only because we don't see ourselves in those other positions on a consistent basis that we don't believe we can do those things.
Yeah, like if you think about Lewis T. Lattimore, they actually called him, he's an inventor from the 1870s, 1800s. He ended up working for Edison as a draftsman, but then he filed a patent for the carbon filament, which is responsible for the sustaining light that Edison received his patent for the light bulb. Edison got a patent for the spark. But the sustenance of that carbon filament, that was produced by Lewis Howard Lattimore. He was the one that has the patent on it, but you'll never see anything mentioned. And just knowing that as an idea, or that the brakemen, you know, Elijah Woods, half of the things that he was able to accomplish, all of these men of... that has been obscure to our visual parameters, so we can't attach a sight to him and say, no, I'm going to hold on to this one and I'm going to follow the course that this one led me through. We're missing that.
Yes. And we need it. We significantly need it. You know, when I go a lot of places, because I'm 6'4", a lot of people, you know, did you play basketball? You know, did you play football? What do you do for a living? I tell them, I'm a scientist. I'm a scientist. That's what I tell people. And you got just to see the look on a lot of these people's faces when you first tell them that. They're like, huh? A scientist? Like, they're completely shocked. So like, this black guy just told me he's a scientist. You know, you can see it in their face, in their eyes.
There's only one black scientist. That's Neil deGrasse.
Right. And so I love doing that because, you know, people will put you in a box. You got, my thing is to show people like, no, there's so many other things we can be doing. And this is one of them. You know, when I first got into this whole field of, the knowledge business, if you want to call it that, I went out to go to these conferences, and a lot of the conferences, these conscious conferences, they didn't have any people of color. I was the only one. And how did I get in? I literally was contacting them every single year for 3 years until finally they said, okay, come on in. We'll give you a small room and give you a room that doesn't charge any money and see how you do. And when I did it, the room was not only sold out, standing room only, and I did a great lecture, and I used that DVD and sent it to another conference and another conference. So all these conferences that had only white faces speaking on these topics that we speak on in science and metaphysics and manifestation and ancient civilizations, all of a sudden I began showing up at all these conferences as the only person of color. And initially, the programming code in the minds of our people is, you know, who'd you sell out? How'd you sell out to get in here? And how come you're the token black person? Instead of seeing me and going, this is great, man, somebody to represent us and, you know, to put forth, show that we have knowledge too in these areas, the initial response, it's changed over time, but the initial response was negative. So I watched it go from a very hard negative response initially to then them getting more comfortable seeing me consistently building and building and building. Now it's becoming accepted. So what that showed me was, the more you see this, the more we continue to see it, the more we accept it, the more we believe it's possible. In the beginning, they didn't even believe it was possible.
No, but you see what you expect.
Yeah.
You know, there's an old saying, you'll never see Paris unless you take it with you. You have to have an expectation of what you're going to see there, and then you fulfill that expectation, or it exceeds that expectation, or it doesn't live up to your expectation. But you have to have an idea of where you're going. So for young men and women, if I had known about black inventors, but the fact that I didn't know about these black inventors, that's one of the things that drove me to, like, I'm going to make the biggest impact in the world of science that's ever been made. I said in my mind when I was a kid watching the cosmos that I was going to discover that grand unified field equation. Wow. I was going to do that. I was going to do that. And I spent every minute working towards it. I'm still spending it. And the only other thing I'm working towards now, because I'm great with that, I've accomplished that. I'm still trying to use my telekinesis. I'm still trying. Every day I spend at least a couple minutes trying to move something with my mind.
That's good, though.
I'm trying to.
That's good,
I haven't succeeded yet in this place, but you know, that's what I'm working on now. I'm like, God, you've given me this knowledge. You know, now give me the ability to make magic as I choose to. You know, I would love those little bitty things now, and no longer outside seeking what was out there. It's just, you know, having moments like this of us being able to share and, you know, and grow. But like what we're doing with the museum now, like James Howard, they've put together a Kickstarter to raise money, you know, so that we can set this museum in place. I would love to leave that, you know, for anyone out there that want to encourage young minds, you know, of any color. To go through there, because I was inspired by Einstein and Niels Bohr, you know, and Feynman. I was inspired by all of these people that were not of my color. You know, but how much more so when I see someone of my color, when I saw you out there for years making that hard stand, you know, all I could do was just applaud. And then when I first came on the red carpet and talked about the stuff and you popped out and said, no, I think he's having an enlightening moment. That's what I think is taking place. Whereas everybody else was, oh, he's going crazy. He's going to rebuild Saturn. You know, well, bitch, I just rebuilt Saturn. Excuse my language.
It's okay.
I just rebuilt
it's real, though. It's real, man.
There, you know?
Yeah, it's real. I get it, man. You know, and like I was saying earlier, it's for what we do. It just takes a lot of courage. I mean, you know, a lot of people, they don't try to expand outward because they feel the pressure going to be so great on them, and they're going outside the boundaries of what the majority are saying they're allowed to do and not to do. But thankfully, people like
you got to break that fear. You're gonna let people tell you what you can and can't do, and what you can and can't think, and what you can and can't learn. There's no limit to knowledge. You can't know everything. New knowledge is coming around all the time. People are rediscovering things from what they were being told.
Ourselves are outside of the programming code.
We're free.
Yeah, we're free, man. It's free, completely free.
It's nothing like being free. And when they so-called gave us emancipation or freed us, no, you will free us when we have received the compensation that would have been paid to our.
So if you go and look at the Lincoln letters, the letters written to Lincoln, and the letters Lincoln wrote during the Civil War, you're going to find maybe 2 or 3 disturbing, very disturbing things. Maybe 4. The first one is, well, I'm going to tell you the last one is this. Slavery wasn't, the Civil War wasn't about slavery. That's the last thing you're going to find out. The Civil War is about what's happening today. So pretty much the North was being taxed by the South. The South had workers as slaves that they could mass produce production. The North did not. The machines only could work so fast during them times. It wasn't as efficient as it was today. So think about when it comes to tariffs on other countries to make up for the manufacturing. And when other countries tariff the U.S. for manufacturing. It's the same game, been going on over and over. Just a different playground and a different battlefield every different cycle. So the first thing you're going to find out with them Lincoln letters is the whole reason they went to war, and then how the Emancipation Proclamation was used to dismantle the South production. Because you gotta realize the South had everything produced. They won't get nothing from the North. So, well, you're gonna find out the 5th thing. And you might have heard it and thought these people were crazy when they said the South won. Well, in a sense, they did. And that came from the Willie Lynch letter. They made you feel as if you was a shareholder to their company, when really you was a slave, a modern day one, to their company. And that is how they are now using the same tactics then for production and manufacturing, now just in a different way, shape, and form. So when you start reading them Lincoln letters that are going on during the war before the proclamation, and then after the proclamation, you find out he was sending letters to where they had the idea to dismantle the South even more with their manufacturing. See, the North wanted to take over the South's manufacturing to cut their price on taxes. That's what it all was about. It was a tax war. Boston Tea Party, a tax war. Think about it. 100 years apart, pretty much. 1860 to 1865. So when you look at everything, even with independence, the people didn't want to be taxed or controlled by England. So when you get down to it, it's all a tax, and the breakdown is all taxes. Now you start to understand the criminal aspect of the legal world. But that's a whole nother subject from this. That has to do with commerce. That has to do with also the straw man. It's all tax. That's what a charge is, a tax. Go get a Black's Law Dictionary, look it up. It's a tax. Look up tax while you're looking at it. You understand where liens come from. But at the end of it all, that's what the war was about, was to dismantle the South so they couldn't be taxed on that production the South was making. So as you read on in them letters, you find out they came up with the idea to dismantle the South by having the slaves fight for their freedom. But if you go back to the French and Indian War, the same thing happened of having them fight for their freedom. And what happened afterwards? Did they get it? No. So you went and fought for your freedom, and then you're still in the same predicament, just a different environment. They're not going to whip and beat you. They're just going to mentally fatigue you. You ain't got time to think for yourself or to figure a way out of your situation to better yourself. Because you mentally fatigued. You got to do this, that. You got to go here, there. And by the time you finish, you're tired. You just want to go to sleep and relax. Those who sleep miss out on success. You got to burn the midnight oil. But as you go through them letters and you find out all that stuff, you also find out there was reparations given. A lot of people received the coastline as their reparations, but they couldn't grow, so they sold it. Think about that now. You got people who have properties and understand the value of it and give it to their kids, and the kids don't understand what they have and they sell it. And someone comes in and makes $1 million just like that. Because they didn't understand what they had at that time. And he's going to break down another reason you can't get reparations. So when you complain, instead of doing something and finding your solution, you stay in the situation you are in. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a change is insanity.
You will free us when we have received the compensation that would have been paid to our ancestors so that we can move forward. Yeah. We're still standing outside the gates. Okay, well, we worked for you for 400 years. What do we get for all of this? You know, do we get to pass and say, oh, yeah, greatly, we gave you freedom when you've enriched yourselves off of all of the work that we've done? Now, I've got an idea. Since the Jews have received their reparations from Germany, I believe Germany's still paying reparations to the descendants of
they're still paying
of those people. We've paid reparations to the Japanese in the internment camps. We've paid reparations to the Chinese that was misused on the railroads. We've paid, I believe, or I think they're working on it, but we paid reparations for the Native Americans.
Yes, we have.
You know, but for the descendants of slaves that actually built this country, that built Wall Street, you know, the first thing that was traded on Wall Street was bonds for about black people, about slaves. Those were the first publicly traded things on Wall Street. Facts. So if we've enriched.
Look at that. Look like they all arrested, don't it? Like a chain gang. This is a picture of slavery, of slaves being aboard a ship. When you study commerce law and understand the fundamental principles of it, of public and private, you will get into something called maritime or admiralty law. And when you get into that, you start to understand where the sea and the ship came from. Because if you look at this picture, it's telling you these slaves are pretty much put into a chain gang, arrested, and aboard the ship. One of our mentors mentioned it, and he was the first one to ever point it out. If you go look at the Miami Federal Jail, it's shaped just like a ship, which confirms maritime law and the legalese of the jurisdictions. This is why I said go and read the Constitution, and you will understand more. But all of it is connected. Listen to what he just said, a bond. All cases are bonded. Your case has a bond. When you look, these slaves are arrested. They are bound. And they're being forced into a ship. How many people are innocently bound and forced into jail? You have a bond that you have to pay. Everything is connected. It's all a game. You just got to know the rules and understand them and pick which piece you're going to play as. You either going to play the life of truth or the life of lies. Whichever one you play, you still have decisions to make. But you got to make the right decisions. And how can you make the right decisions if you don't even do the research to understand what it is that's in front of you? Because a picture can say 1,000 words. But each picture can have 1,000 words. But the story and the meaning behind them is way deeper than them 1,000 words can even be put together.
This country for 400 years, and you don't have the money. There's a thing called the Brattle Group, independent statistics organization that did an evaluation on African Americans or the descendants of slaves, and they said that it's over 108 to 131 trillion dollars that's owed to the descendants of slaves.
Wow.
Now we don't make that in 10 years.
No.
Our country does not have that money free
More
to pay
than
out.
GDP.
So they're never able to pay us. So since they have built their entire country off of our labor for 400 years without any type of compensation, the only thing that I would think would...
When you read the Constitution, you'll find out slavery is not abolished. It's allowed for a punishment of a crime. So when you get into the legalese of understanding commerce and the fundamentals and principles of law, you start to see how it all connects. Because when you look at this, you start to also understand that if they don't have the money and never will have the money, what is next for you? Do you stay where you are waiting for something that can't come or that they can't even physically give you? Because all of it has a meaning and has another meaning behind it. For example, you have the English language. But when you break down the English language, it was made up. The other languages weren't. So where did the English language come from? That's when you got to really go back to the actual languages. And then you find out what you're reading says something completely different than what you was told. For example, the Bible, it says gods, but when you put it back in the original language, you get Elohim, which means more than one God. Now, why wasn't you told that? Why was that taken out? Why don't the church tell you that Jesus is a stumbling block? Why would Jesus be a stumbling block? Why would that be in the Bible? Do your research.
Be fair is for the next 400 years or 500 years or however long it's been, the descendants of slaves should not have to pay any taxes. And now the African American community becomes an opportunity zone where other communities can now invest in, and you can grow. And it's the same tax credit that has been given to states that allow for a lot of innovation and money to come in through the states for filming and for production. We are able to do that. And since we so-called only make up 13% of the population, which I find very strange.
That's a small
that black
number.
people only make up 13% of the American
impossible,
population.
but if it is, that's a small amount of money. If you don't pay taxes, it's not that much money.
It's 13% you lose, and you'll gain it 1,000-fold. You know, for a reasonable approach to solving these problems. You know, like I'm sitting here watching them in their elections this year. What are they talking about?
Oh, garbage! It's look, he said this and she said that, and it's like I'm watching two elementary school kids at the playground fighting. Who's standing on business?
Are you standing on business? Because a lot of people, they just living life. What are you doing?
Who's coming with real concepts, ideas, solutions to problems? Nobody. It's about tit for tat and propaganda.
Yeah, it's like they're voting for a homecoming king or queen.
It's crazy.
And that's...
The crazy thing is, it's like he said earlier, everything was built off your labor and it's all based off your labor. So when you look at all of this and you look back to it, you start to realize, oh, that's where the 13th Amendment comes in at.
Our world right now, we're at a point where trillions and trillions of dollars are about to be sent back here as a result of the BRICS and their continued influence and growth. The petrodollar is no longer based on the U.S. dollar. Half of them are trading in other dollars. And so all of the billions of dollars and trillions of dollars that's been sent to these countries to cover their indirect form of exchange with the U.S. dollar, they're sending their money back here, and we don't have the money to pay for it. This country doesn't have the money. So we're facing the potential of an inflation like that which hit Venezuela. And
I told people about that many years ago. When you look at the map, Venezuela went down. The rest of it was Amazon and Brazil. They had nowhere to go but up, which means they were all going to come to the U.S. So when this rush on the border happened, I already knew and understood all of that. But at the same time, it's like, what's next for you? What are you going to do to make sure your life is straight?
And collapse that country. We're not like Iceland, where we have our own energy that's coming from and our own source of water.
You can be your own source of water. You can be your own source of water. You just got to be able to grow and become that water source. You can split your own cells in half, but they're not going to want you to know or tell you that. But it's what happens when you drive fast. Your cells will start to split in half.
where we can recover from a gigantic fall like they were able to. So we need to come together and think about innovation now and to insulate the U.S. and grow it again. And with this, you can set an example for the rest of the world for them to make their way into this.
That's a fact. That's a great idea and a great
solve
concept.
Their problems.
It's a beautiful concept and a great idea. I hope somebody is able to hear this and pick that up and act on it, somebody in a position of power. And as far as the museum, we're going to make sure we have the links. Make sure you guys click those links and support this museum. It's an incredible concept. I've already been one of the supporters of this museum. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to manifesting the day that it actually opens.
Yes, we're going to do a big gala, to raise funds for it, I think around April, sometime towards the end of April. But we're working tirelessly just to keep this knowledge in front of our children so they are encouraged to make bigger strides than just on TikTok. Make a difference. Come do more than what I've done. I don't know if you can do that because you got to beat the fractal, but finding other applications for this geometry. I was just given I'm a geometer. I was given that. I'm not the person that will be able to make all of these applications that ChatGPT predicted. That's in the hearts and minds of other people out there. But I'm hoping that we're presenting tools that
we're creating a spark. Like Tupac said, you're going to be a spark in the mind that's going to change the world. And you're becoming a spark in the mind that's going to change the world. Someone out there at some point in time, when divine time is appropriate, is going to look into and research these concepts and is going to come up with an innovative idea or an invention that's going to help begin to change the world, or is going to connect with you to help work with your projects and build something out, whether it's in a university or a government. It's going to happen because it has to happen.
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for that. But in the meanwhile, we're building the linchpins. We're working on the harmonic wave sequencer. We're building this new simulators, and we're expanding. We're turning the wave conjugations into toys.
Nice.
With some books coming out called Why does a bubble take the shape of a ball? Why not a square or a triangle? And then there's another book called What Came First, the Circle, the Triangle, or the Square? Because I want to now reach the youth and giving them these tools in which to develop their understanding and imagination of the universe. Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
The future looks bright.
Yes, absolutely. And we'd love to have you, man, on Forbidden Knowledge TV to begin to teach. Maybe we can come up with some kind of concept. We'll talk off air.
I would love that. And there's people that I talked to. I just did Demystify Science.
Okay.
An episode of Demystify Science with Anastasia and Michael, two beautiful scientists that took a deep dive and evaluated the wave conjugations and all those things. And I actually talked to them about possibly connecting with you and coming on and having a show on your platform because I believe in it. I believe the forbidden knowledge, and I've got to now go talk to my boss, my wife, and because that's something that I would really want to do, and I'd love to be on a consistent basis, encouraging, our people. And our people is everyone that is consciously a part of it. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't want to be a Homo sapien anymore. I want to be Homo superius.
Yes, I love it.
Because we have a superior mentality, a superior emotional connection and empathy for the universe. And I'm no longer that Homo inferius that does not recognize the life principle and everything. This is where we diverge. And become something new. And I believe we are of a different species now.
It's time for that evolution and that transformation to happen. Tell everyone where they can find you, find your work.
All you have to do is go to Terry's Linchpins. That's TERRYS Linchpins, LYNCHPINS.com. And you'll have access to a number of different apps, a number of different pictures, and all of the patents are.
Make sure y'all go and check it out, because when y'all go and look at all of that, you'll start to see stuff that you ain't normally see and be able to do your research.
listed there, and the philosophy associated, and the understanding that come with these things. Everything has its proof, and you could go to TCOTLC, which is Tango Charlie Oscar, TangoLibreCharlie.com, and pick up the book 1 × 1 = 2, which actually challenges the status quo of an action times an action not having a reaction, which is the basis for the fault and the need for these error correcting codes now.
Gotcha. All right, man. It's been amazing, Terrance, man. Thank you, brother. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future and continuing to build on this.
Yes, this is just this is our second or third.
Second. One was the Instagram, but this is like in person.
Before we end this video, y'all keep striving high in positivity and keep staying in y'all mindset and law of attraction of abundance. And y'all make sure y'all don't get distracted. Stay focused and disciplined.
Yeah, we should do this. Yeah. We need to do this. And, you know, if you look up, if you can provide some of those other things up there, anything you
we're
want.
going to have them all up there. And I'll get some stuff off your site, and we'll make sure we edit it into the video.
Yeah, but I'm available and looking forward to growing.
Thank you, man. Looking forward to it. All right. Peace, everybody. That is another episode of the Forbidden Knowledge Podcast. We had Terrance Howard on here, an amazing human being. And if you didn't learn anything from this, that means you weren't paying attention. Make sure you replay this video. Make sure you click the like button, and also make sure you share this video with as many people as you possibly can. Peace.